are insane MLB stories to fall asleep to. And first, did you know every catcher is actually calling pitches with a remote control? Because instead of the finger signs catchers have used forever, they now wear a sleeve on their forearm called PitchCom. Basically a remote with 9 buttons for every pitch type and location. Press one, and an encrypted radio signal shoots to a receiver in the pitcher's cap, where a recorded voice speaks the call right into his ear. But it's not just him. Up to 3 other fielders can wear receivers too, so they can secretly shift around based on what pitch is coming. I mean, players can even record the calls in their own voice and translate it to whatever language they want. But the craziest part was what happened when Max Scherzer used it for the first time. At first, man said it worked perfectly, then he turned around and told reporters it should be illegal.
Yeah, does it help? Does it help? Yes, but I also think it should be illegal. I don't think this should be in the game.
But listen, a 9-button remote is baby tech compared to every replay you've ever seen reviewed, getting secretly decided in a $30 million room that isn't even in the stadium. See, when umpires throw on those headsets during a review, they're not talking to just somebody upstairs. They're talking to replay officials sitting in New York City no matter where the game is being played. Inside, the place looks like a national mission control. 36 HD TVs, 15 computer monitors, and 6 workstations that each have 4 46-inch screens which can split into 12 images each. For every review, they pull the stadium's high home camera, 2 batter cams MLB owns, plus all the super slow-mo and isolated cameras from both TV broadcasts. And in 2020, they doubled the isolated cameras available to 24. Yeah, the original room was only 900 square feet, and MLB still spent about $30 million building it, then built a newer one twice the size when they moved offices. And thank God they did, because in the 2019 season alone, there were over 1,200 reviews and 600 plus calls that got flipped. That's 47.3%. Damn near half of what umpires call on close plays is just wrong. That's insane. But that room only wakes up when somebody challenges a call. There's something else in every stadium secretly recording everything, all the time, whether anybody asks or not. Since 2020, all 30 MLB stadiums are rigged with 12 Hawkeye cameras from the same company that does the line calls in tennis. 5 of them lock onto every pitch at crazy frame rates, while the other 7 track the players and every batted ball. And when I say track, I don't mean a dot on a screen. The system maps 18 joints on every player's body 30 times per second for everyone on the field on every play. It also grabs around 60 data points on every single pitch from the moment it leaves the pitcher's hand. And the old radar system used to lose about 1 out of every 10 batted balls, while Hawkeye catches 99% of them. Add it all up, and MLB is quietly collecting millions of data points every game and multiple terabytes of tracking data every season. So baseball's literally a video game now. Alright. I know being watched like that 24/7 sounds crazy, but I watch my subscriber list the exact same way. And I hate literally everyone who isn't on it, and I know you ain't. So subscribe, or I hate you. Anyways, even with all those cameras, there was still one thing in baseball nobody had ever measured until 2024 when they finally did, and one man instantly broke the whole system. Because in May of 2024, MLB bolted 5 more high-speed cameras into every park just to track the bat itself, its speed, its path, its exact position in space on every single swing. Swing speed gets measured right at the sweet spot of the barrel, about 6 inches from the head of the bat. And the data instantly started fights because contact hitters like Luis Arias showed up at the bottom of the bat speed list while still hitting 300, which had everyone arguing about whether swinging hard even matters. But then there's Giancarlo Stanton, who swings like the baseball owes him money. Not only did he lead the league at an average of 80 miles per hour, nearly 3 whole miles per hour faster in second place, he swung over 75 miles per hour on 98% of his swings when the next closest hitter only did 73% of the time. And on one of his homers, the swing was measured at over 83 miles an hour, and the ball left his bat at almost 120 miles an hour. But swing speeds aren't even close to the strangest thing MLB controls, because the baseball itself lives a whole secret life before every game. See, the ball flying across your TV didn't just come out of a box, it's been living in a vault. It all started in Denver back in 2002 because the Rockies play a mile high in the air where balls fly stupid far. So they built a 9x9 foot walk-in chamber, 7 feet tall, locked at 70 degrees and 50% humidity, just to calm their baseballs down. And the science is real. Drier balls are actually bouncier and fly farther, so the ball's moisture literally changes how the game plays. Problem is, by 2021, only 9 or 10 parks even had one, meaning the actual baseball played different depending on what city you were in. And with hitters already accusing the league of secretly juicing and deadening balls to control offense across the whole sport.
That it's 100% the league has purposefully implemented juiced baseballs to increase offense. Do you think baseball has done something like that?
No, that's where I don't know. I mean, you can know as a pitcher that something's not right, but then I don't know if you can go as far as to say that you feel like it's intentional.
MLB eventually shut it all down in 2022 when every single team became required to store their game balls in a similar place set to exactly 70 degrees and 57% humidity. But baseball's living in a climate-controlled panic room isn't even the weirdest part of their life, as this billion-dollar league secretly depends on a hole in the ground? Fresh baseballs come out of the factory too slick to grip. So since 1938, every single ball used in the majors and minors gets hand rubbed with the same exact stuff, Lena Blackburn baseball rubbing mud.
And these guys are rubbing down baseballs just like they do before every A's home game.
And all of it comes from one spot in southern New Jersey, a location that's literally been kept secret for over 80 years. The entire supply is harvested by one dude, Jim Bintliff, a retired printing press operator who drives out about once a month to scoop mud from his grandfather's old fishing hole.
Jim's family have been the only people carefully harvesting the only substance legally applied to Major League Baseball.
And before you ask, yeah, MLB tried making a synthetic replacement and failed. Scientists at the University of Pennsylvania even studied the mud in 2024, found the clay, water, and sand mix spreads like a skin cream and grips like sandpaper, then concluded that trying to copy it would be foolish. I mean, the Army Corps of Engineers looked into it too and found the Jersey side mud is loaded with feldspar, a mild abrasive. So the same ball that gets tracked by 12 cameras and stored in climate-controlled vault starts its life covered in secret mud that one retired dude has kept hidden for over 80 years? Now, alright, that is crazy. But at least everybody knows the mud exists. I bet you didn't know. Pitchers are constantly getting x-rays taken during games from something hidden to prevent injuries. It's called Kinatrax, and it's motion capture with no suits and no sensors. High-speed cameras rebuild a pitcher's entire 3D skeleton, joints and bone angles during real games without the player wearing a single thing. A typical setup is 16 cameras, 8 on the pitcher, 8 on the batter, now recording it up to 600 frames a second. These systems are sitting in over 75 stadiums and labs across MLB, the minors, and college. And they've already tracked more than 1 million pitches for teams like the Red Sox, Cubs, and Rays. Now, even though just one college setup at Cal Poly took $500,000 in donations to build, here's the craziest part. Pro pitchers put around 64 Newton meters of torque on their elbow, while the ligament in there can only survive about 33. The only reason arms don't explode constantly is the muscles around the ligament sharing the load. So when a pitcher gets fatigued and his mechanics slip, it shows up in the data first. Teams treat all of it like secret medical intel, and even quietly run it on draft prospects during games. Because this tech means a team can watch a Tommy John surgery coming before the ligament ever tears. But those cameras only watch pitchers break. There's a warehouse lab out there that literally builds them. Back in 2008, a former software engineer named Kyle Body built a small lab in Kent, Washington to test pitching training like an actual science, weighted baseballs, biomechanics, high-speed video. The signature move is overload and underload weighted ball throwing, including pull-downs where guys take a running start and throw as hard as humanly possible while radar tracks every mile per hour. And in Driveline's own published numbers, nearly 42% of athletes left throwing at least 1 mile per hour harder off the mound than when they walked in. The place is stacked with ultra slow-mo Edgertronic cameras around the mound, TrackMan radar, Rapsodo units, force plates, and their own software that auto-fires the cameras the second the radar gun catches a pitch. That's how modern breaking balls get made now. Pitchers watch their own fingers leave the seams at thousands of frames per second, then redesign the grip like engineers. There's even Trevor Bauer, who became the first star to openly credit Driveline for his velocity and pitch design. And once he won the 2020 Cy Young, everybody got hyped and interest exploded. Now, even though some coaches and surgeons blame those same weighted balls for the elbow epidemic those Kinatrax cameras are hunting, while Driveline keeps publishing research defending it, more than half of all MLB teams now use Driveline tech or methods. So pitchers aren't just born anymore, they're assembled. But while the labs were busy building pitchers, the Yankees were hiding something in their bat rack that would break the internet. The man behind it is Aaron Leonhardt, electrical engineering degree from Michigan, physics PhD from MIT, worked on a NASA-funded research team, then taught physics at Michigan for 7 years. But at 40 years old, man straight up quit being a professor to go work in baseball, becoming a Yankees analyst. Now, his idea was stupidly simple. Bats are thickest at the tip, but that's not where hitters actually make contact. So move the wood down to each player's personal sweet spot, 6 to 8 inches from the tip, and custom shape every bat using that hitter's own contact data. The Yankees built it quietly around 2022 and 2023, and damn near nobody outside the building knew it existed. Until opening weekend 2025, when the bats went public and the Yankees hit 15 home runs in their first 3 games, including a franchise record 9-1 game, a 20-9 beatdown of the Brewers. Instantly, broadcasters, pitchers, and fans were all screaming that the Yankees were cheating. Meanwhile, other people got so hyped that Fictitious president said nothing in his 15 years of making bats ever sparked interest like this. So the factory that normally made 600 to 700 bats a day went into overdrive, and consumer torpedoes hit shelves for $199 to $239. Then on March 30th, MLB made it official. Rule 3.02a says a bat can't be more than 2.61 inches at the thickest part, but it never says where the thickest part has to be. So the bat everyone swore was cheating now became completely legal, so a physicist just read the rulebook closer than anybody else. And the funniest part? Lienhard had already left the Yankees for the Marlins before the bat ever went viral, so the team that invented it lost the inventor before the world even knew it existed? What if I told you an entire other team actually got caught cheating? All because of a secret watch. Remember that replay room from earlier? Every team has their own version in the stadium with live feeds, and in 2017, the Yankees filed a complaint saying Boston turned theirs into a cheat code. Red Sox staff were using their replay room to decode Yankees catcher sign sequences, then texting the intel to an athletic trainer's Apple Watch in the dugout, who passed it to players. Commissioner Rob Manfred confirmed the whole scheme and fined Boston an undisclosed amount. And funny enough, the Yankees got hit with a smaller fine too for misusing a dugout phone in an earlier season. Boston even tried a counterclaim accusing the Yankees of spying with their own TV network cameras, but the MLB found nothing, which all ended with both fines donated to hurricane relief, no lost draft picks, and nobody suspended, where the Red Sox walked away damn near untouched, except Manfred left one warning: do electronic sign stealing again, and the punishment would be severe. So you already know what happened. In 2020, the MLB found Boston's replay operator decoding sign sequences again, which got him suspended a full season and cost the Red Sox a second-round draft pick, because the season he did it in? 2018, aka the exact year Boston won the whole World Series. But in 2026, the technology started judging the umpires. Remember those 12 Hawkeye cameras tracking skeletons? Starting in 2026, that exact same system tracks every pitch against a computer-drawn strike zone. Now, it's not full robo-ump yet, which I'm sure is coming soon. The human still calls every pitch, but each team gets 2 challenges per game, and only the batter, the pitcher, or the MLB. From robot umps to a new stadium that's basically a spaceship, and 4 massive rule changes that are about to change the MLB forever. There's a lot of new things coming to the MLB this season that you need to know about. And first, a new thing coming to the MLB is actually helping the most hated team in baseball finally have a home. It's all because the A's have been one of the most disrespected teams in sports for decades. They got ripped out of Oakland after 57 years, then forced to play out of a AAA stadium in Sacramento for 3 whole seasons while their real home gets built. So knowing they'd have nothing for years, they went the complete opposite direction and designed a stadium that looks like it came from space. But it's not just the alien armadillo looking dome that's brand new and gives the A's crazy home field advantage. The stadium is fully climate controlled in the middle of the Vegas desert, so while their opponents are cooking in 115-degree heat just walking from their hotel to the stadium, the A's players stay perfectly chill. The roof also has 4 overlapping layers specifically designed to block out direct sunlight and keep glare off the field, so players won't be squinting trying to catch pop-ups all summer. And if all that wasn't crazy enough, it's also got one of the largest cable glass windows in all of North America that opens the whole place up to the Strip. The Jumbotron is 18,000 square feet of pure screen. The place has its own diamond club with Vegas-themed food stations, and it's sitting right next to Bali's $1.19 billion casino project. Yeah, the A's are spending $2 billion on this spaceship that's designed to help them finally not be ass. So if building all that just to win a few games in the Vegas heat isn't damn near cheating, I don't know what is. But even that isn't changing as much as what MLB players wear, because there's a jersey scandal that actually involved the player's private part. Now, before things got that insane, jerseys that 8 teams will wear this year are getting a whole new revamp. For the Braves, they ditched red and went with a clean baby blue throwback pullover with vintage Atlanta script across the chest, which Ronald Acuna Jr. said, "We're gonna win a lot of games in these." Then the Rangers dropped one that just says Tejas in late 80s lettering with a Viva Tejas jock tag. The Orioles went full 1890s with Be More across the chest and a scoreboard sleeve detail. Then there's the Reds, Royals, Brewers, Pirates, Padres that all unveiled new city connects on the same day. Even the Tigers brought back their 1984 orange and navy alternates with V-necks and 90s cap. Now, while all those are teams just wanting a fresh new look, one jersey situation from Nike took a completely different turn and involved players' actual private parts. Let me explain. 2 seasons ago, Nike rolled out their new Vapor Premier jerseys with pants so thin, you could see right through them. Cal Raleigh's jersey was literally visible through his pants in a team video, a Padres player's sensitive areas leaked in a spring training photo, and fans were cooking Nike saying his pants are toilet paper, and posting experiments where toilet paper was less see-through than the actual MLB uniforms. So for 2026, Nike is fixing all of it. They're bringing back the heavier vapor fabric that actually absorbs sweat. The names on the back are going back to the larger style and embroidered patches instead of iron-on looking letters. And not only are the bucket fit baggy restrictive cuts officially banned, players will work with Nike fitters individually so this never happens again. Shout out to everyone who had to play pantsless for 2 straight seasons. But another new thing coming to the MLB this season is gonna create some of the most expensive collectibles in sports history. We're talking about tens of millions of dollars. Yeah, most of the pieces of cardboards like this have sold for more than mansions and supercars combined, with one Mickey Mantle card going for over 12 million. So this year, Topps is dropping sets that'll make collectors go absolutely crazy. From their brand new Damascus insert, 31 cards designed to look like the legendary Damascus steel blade, with red refractors, numbered out of 5 and 101 super fractors, to painted autographs, 19 cards numbered out of only 10 copies each, with stars even signing in white paint pen on jet black backgrounds for stunning contrast. There's also the return of super future autographs featuring rookies like Paul Skeens, Bubba Chandler, Jacob Mizrachi, plus Shohei Ohtani sitting at card number 1 with encased on-card autographs falling 1 per hobby box. And since Topps has never combined this level of paint pen signing with rookie chrome technology before, this year will produce some of the rarest MLB cards that have ever existed. But speaking of valuable things, another new thing coming to the MLB has one team spending more on a single player than 7 entire rosters. Yeah, oh, and I forgot to say that money like that was about to make MLB history. Because with the Dodgers already winning 2 straight World Series, spending like they were running out of Monopoly cash, signing Shohei Ohtani for 700 mil, Yamamoto for 325 mil, Blake Snell for 182 mil, and re-upping Edwin Diaz, the Timmy Trumpet closer, for 69 million? Honestly, that was just the warm-up. Because this offseason, they went out and grabbed Tanner Scott for 72 million, Teoscar Hernandez for 66 mil, even this South Korean superstar and like 20 other dudes. Like, bro, they could have just signed Kyle Tucker and called it the offseason signing of the year and gone home. Instead, they signed Tucker and went and got 20 other guys for another $300 million on top. Who does that? Speaking of Tucker, in January, they went out and signed the top free agent for 4 years, $240 million, which doesn't just shatter the AAV record, it broke it by $6 million. Yeah, Tucker turned down a guaranteed 10-year deal with Toronto just to sign shorter with LA. But the real crazy part is what it's costing the Dodgers. Because they're already over the highest luxury tax threshold, they'd have to pay a 110% penalty on every dollar over $304 million, which means Tucker's 2026 season alone is costing them $119 million. That's more than 7 entire teams' roster payroll. And when you do the math, the Dodgers' total payroll with luxury tax penalties comes to over $508 million, which is only a few million shy of the combined payrolls of the 6 lowest spending teams in the league. Nah man, this ain't baseball, this is pay to win, which is exactly why owners are about to go nuclear, but more on that later. Anyways, what else is changing this season? Well, balls. Not like that, let me explain. Because even though baseball started as rubber cores wrapped in yarn over 150 years ago, then the league settled on the cowhide leather version everyone knows today. Nowadays, while the league puts custom patches on sleeves for every major anniversary like the Cubs 150th, Blue Jays 50th, and Mariners 50th, this year, the MLB wanted to honor the United States for being a country for 250 years. So for the first time ever, every team is wearing a special red, white, and blue USA 250 patch with the NFL, NBA, NHL, UFC, NASCAR, MLS, and WWE all coming together on the same design. The patch debuted at the Super Bowl, then rolls out across every MLB game game on July 4th and hits peak at the All-Star game in Philadelphia on July 14th, which isn't just random. Philly is literally where the Declaration of Independence was signed, and the last time Philly hosted the All-Star game was in 1976 for America's bicentennial. And baseball ain't the only thing going crazy for America's 250th, because for the first time ever, they're shutting down the streets of Washington, D.C. to run a full IndyCar race called the Freedom 250. Yeah, race cars flying down Pennsylvania Avenue right past the Washington Monument and the U.S. Capitol, and the president himself literally signed the order to make it happen? Now, I already know all that would make the president say,
"Oh, I'm gonna come."
This means every pitch thrown on July 4th will be done while players wear a piece of American history. But America is one thing. There's another change the MLB is making to try to force baseball to become the biggest sport on the planet. Because for over 100 years, every single MLB regular season game was played only in the US and Canada until 1996 when the first games went down in Mexico. And that was only step one of the league's plan to make the rest of the world obsessed with baseball, which kept getting crazier. Because after that, there were games in Japan, South Korea, Australia, the UK, even 2 MLB games in London Stadium where the Yankees and Red Sox scored a combined 50 runs in 2 games. But this year was supposed to be even crazier. The league had Mexico City set with the Diamondbacks versus Padres on April 25th and 26th, the Field of Dreams game coming back August 13th with the Twins versus Phillies, and a massive London series between the Yankees and Blue Jays on June 13th and 14th, until the FIFA World Cup stole everything. West Ham Stadium in London couldn't flip the field in time because of the World Cup schedule, and Fox already had broadcast commitments, so the entire London series got cancelled, meaning MLB fans in Europe just got robbed because soccer exists. But even with Europe gone, the league is still planning to keep expanding internationally, with more countries getting games every single year, and before we know it, the next place they might play is Mars. The league isn't just changing where they play, they completely changed where you can even watch it. Because for over 35 straight years, if you wanted the biggest game of the week, you turned on ESPN Sunday Night Baseball, and that was just how it was. But this year, the entire thing got blown up. MLB signed a brand new deal and ripped Sunday Night Baseball away from ESPN after 3.5 decades, handing it straight to the NBC and Peacock. Us men who grew up watching baseball on one channel their whole lives, now it's just gone. But that's not even the craziest part. For the first time ever, a streaming service that built its whole empire on binge watching shows in your bed is now showing live baseball. That's right, Netflix, the same Netflix you watch documentaries on, aired its first ever live MLB game this season with Aaron Judge and the Yankees taking on the Giants on opening night. And they didn't stop there. Netflix also locked up the Home Run Derby and the Field of Dreams game. So now the most cinematic events in baseball are on the most cinematic app. Now, that sounds great on paper until they actually went live with it, cause Netflix absolutely botched the whole thing. They basically turned the first game of the season into a celebrity concert. They drove a cable car and 2 taxis onto the actual field during the lineups. They had John Cena explaining the robot system, Jameis Winston serving players hot dogs and running a crab leg stand, an Addams Family character throwing out a first pitch, and this dude just screaming at the crowd like a maniac. And on top of all that, the stream was buffering non-stop, the score bug was so tiny you couldn't even read it, and fans were going off calling the whole thing cringe and a giant infomercial. Like, I get it, Netflix, it's your first game, but maybe show some actual baseball next time? Yeah, between ESPN, Fox, NBC, Peacock, Apple TV, TBS, Netflix, and MLB TV, nowadays I don't even know where to watch baseball at. I basically need 8 different subscriptions just to watch one season. I can't afford that. That's why I'm making YouTube videos for you guys. So, help out, subscribe. But anyway, it's not just stadiums, balls, uniforms, cards, money, and where you watch baseball that's new this season. There's 4 massive rule changes that are about to change the MLB forever. First, since nowadays they're about to become some of the most powerful pieces of wood in sports. See, an MIT-educated former physics professor designed a new bat shape called a torpedo bat, which moves the fattest part of the bat closer to where the players make the most contact. Last season, the Yankees hit a franchise record 9 home runs in one game using these, and now hundreds of players are ordering them. Cody Bellinger, Jazz Chisholm, Francisco Lindor, Giancarlo Stanton, all using torpedoes. Brewers closer Trevor McGill called it Bush League and said, "I've never seen anything like it before." Other execs were literally begging for the MLB to ban them, but Manfred himself came out and said he loves them. So for now, torpedo bats are legal, and anyone who doesn't switch to them is about to get left behind, which is about to change MLB offense forever. And that also means that once teams fully roll them out, MLB's about to hit a new level of home run. One of the craziest things coming in 2026 might actually get the 2027 season canceled. See, the owners are enraged about the Dodgers spending like the rest of the league doesn't exist, and the MLB is saying,
shut the fuck up, no one cares.
Not to the Dodgers, obviously, to the players. As the current CBA expires December 1st, 2026 at 11:59 p.m. And owners are pushing for a first ever salary cap, no matter what it takes. Keep in mind the last time this happened was 1994, when the players went on strike and the owners canceled the entire World Series, which hadn't happened since ever. And the last lockout in 2022 almost canceled regular season games until both sides cut a deal at the last second in March. But this time, sources say owners are ready to torch the entire 2027 season to force the players to accept the cap. Bruce Mayer just took over as MLBPA executive director and already said a lockout is all but guaranteed. And Cubs president Jed Hoyer admitted he literally structured contracts so he'd have clean books when the CBA expires because he knew this was coming. Regardless, if both sides can't come to an agreement, 2027 might be the first year without baseball since 1994. And with MLB players already joking that robots are about to take over the whole league, I used to think that was cap until I saw what these actual robots can already do. Scientists already built robots that could throw a baseball 70 miles an hour. That's damn near a real high school pitcher, except this one doesn't get tired, doesn't crash out, and doesn't ask for a $240 million contract. And it gets weirder. These same robots can take batting practice, not just off a machine, but against actual humans, and play against each other. So you're telling me we already got robot umps calling the strikes this season, AI tracking every single pitch, and now Metal Man's out here taking BP? At this rate, by 2030, only thing still human in the MLB might be the ball boy. And honestly, give it a few more years, they'll probably replace him too. Shohei Ohtani is a lot more than an MVP, MLB champion, and record-setting baseball icon.
Oh my gosh! Greatest day!
His balls are worth millions. His life got turned into an FBI investigation.
Shut your door!
Ohtani even survived a nuclear explosion, and there's plenty of other things you didn't know about him. And first, I bet you didn't know that Ohtani has the most expensive ball in MLB history. No, not that one. See, he came into a game and not only got a steal to give him 50 on the season, Ohtani also hit his 50th home run and kept going off that game.
The greatest day in baseball history!
But since Ohtani became the first player ever to hit 50 home runs and steal 50 bases in the same season, the ball from his 50th home run eventually went to auction where it sold for almost $4.5 million. The most expensive ball in MLB, scratch that, in sports history. But you definitely didn't know that Ohtani made the police put an entire city under control. It was the day that this Ohtani bobblehead was being given away, and knowing how many people love him, on top of how much it could resell for online, fans not only camped outside, lines of cars were stuck in traffic that didn't move, and literally thousands of people waited in line for almost 4 hours just to get their hands on Ohtani. And people never saw things like this before, which is why extra police were called in to keep everything under control. Then the situation even made the news.
Well, the game just started a little while ago, but some fans started lining up as early as 5:30 this morning.
Damn, Ohtani is a baseball god. But another thing you didn't know about him involved him predicting the future with thousands of dollars in gifts for his teammates. It happened after Ohtani led the Dodgers to World Series championships in back-to-back seasons. So because he wanted to win 3 in a row so badly, Ohtani combined his love for watches and a motivation for his teammates by getting them clean silver and light blue Psycho watches that cost $4,000 each. But not only that, reports came out that each box came with a note saying, "Let's three-peat." But honestly, motivating teammates is just one thing. There's no way you knew what Ohtani did to honor someone who died. This is Miguel Rojas, aka Ohtani's teammate, that got a devastating call just 40 minutes before a game. It turned out that his dad, Miguel Sr., was on the way to the hospital and suffered a heart attack, which sadly took his life. So even though his teammate deservedly got the day off, Ohtani honored him by writing his initials on his hat before the game, then pitching in front of the entire world with it on, just to keep his dad's spirit alive. Man, you gotta respect him for that. But I also respect something else I didn't know about him, that Ohtani could have made the Olympics in a completely different sport? Just listen, because before he ever played baseball, Ohtani was competing against other kids in the pool, and he wasn't just good at swimming. This man spent so much time training in the water that his high school coach straight up said Ohtani was the fastest swimmer on the entire team, and that he easily could have made the Olympics. Just imagine dudes swimming the Olympics instead of playing baseball. Honestly, thank God you didn't stick with that, because the MLB would be boring without him. But if you didn't know that, I bet you also didn't know the crazy thing Ohtani sleeps with. Well, not just those. See, all because Ohtani falls asleep during games and literally sleeps 12 hours a day. 12, that's double what most people get. which means while you're working your 9 to 5, going to the gym, making dinner, watching Netflix, and going to sleep, Ohtani's been unconscious the whole time. But it gets weirder, because Ohtani had a company run scientific tests on his body just to engineer him the perfect pillow possible. But alright, doing all that to maximize sleep and recovery is one thing. Something else you didn't know about Ohtani turned into such a massive scandal. It got him robbed by his best friend. Because from the moment Ohtani came to America, he had one guy by his side at all times, his best friend and interpreter, Ippei. He was the one who spoke English and helped Ohtani with anything including business deals, so Ohtani trusted this man with everything. But behind the scenes, Ippei started gambling and made over 19,000 bets with an illegal bookmaker. And when he lost, he would pretend to be Ohtani on the phone with the bank and wire money straight to his bookie.
Who am I speaking with? Shohei Ohtani?
I mean, he even changed the phone number and email on Ohtani's bank account to his own, so all the alerts and notifications went straight to his phone. And by the time it all came out, Ippei had already stolen over $15 million.
The evidence we've gathered over the past few weeks has demonstrated that in total, Mr. Mitsuhara stole over $16 million from Mr. Ohtani's account in order to pay for these illegal sports bets.
Then when Ohtani found out, Ippei pleaded guilty to bank fraud, got sentenced to 57 months in prison, then was ordered to pay back all the money. Now, I don't know how this dude is getting that, but I bet you didn't know, Ohtani almost never played for the Dodgers and was close to choosing a completely different team. Because once Ohtani left the Angels to hit free agency, the Toronto Blue Jays were the top team doing anything they could to sign him. Especially since one of their pitchers not only went to the same high school as Ohtani in Japan, everyone felt the connection was perfect. I mean, people also reported they saw Ohtani on a plane headed from California to Toronto where the Blue Jays play. But right when it looked like he might actually end up in Canada, news broke that Ohtani chose the Dodgers, which apparently had the organization very disappointed. So, ironically enough, the Blue Jays had a chance to get revenge on Ohtani when they matched up against the Dodgers in the World Series. So, the same team Ohtani almost signed with was now standing across the field from him trying to beat him for a championship. But as expected, Ohtani and his boys went off, won game after game, and eventually secured back-to-back World Series titles right on their forehead. I already know Blue Jays fans were pissed. But hold on, Ohtani could actually still join them with the next thing you didn't know about him? Because at any second, one special rule could allow Ohtani to switch teams whenever he wants? See, it's all from a special rule in his Dodgers contract. And since that deal was crazy and broke records itself, which we'll get to more about later, when Ohtani signed there, he wasn't just joining the team, he was committing to the people who ran everything and purposely got something put in his contract called a key man clause. Now, I ain't never heard of that, but it says if the Dodgers owner or their president leaves the organization for any reason, Ohtani can opt out of his entire contract, meaning at any second, if either of those two guys get fired, retire, sell the team, or just decide to leave, Ohtani's a free agent all over again with the ability to sign wherever he wants. Now that is insane, but I could see why Ohtani of all people has a level of control that no athlete has ever had in their own contract. Now listen, another thing you didn't know about Ohtani had him breaking iconic records that involved MLB legends, rare collectibles, and millions of dollars. We're talking about a man who made history more times than I can even count, including this home run that was the longest of his career up to that point, the longest of the season, and longest in that stadium for almost a decade.
There's a drive! Shohei Ohtani gets the Angels on the board with his 30th home run, an absolute rocket!
But things got even crazier when Ohtani became the first player ever to be selected to the All-Star game as both a pitcher and a hitter. This is also a man who hit 50 home runs and got 50 strikeouts as a pitcher in the same season. You know, the first player to ever do that too. Then in the playoffs, he reached base 9 times in a single game, another record. And if all that wasn't enough, Ohtani's one-of-one logo man patch autograph card sold for $3 million, the most expensive Ohtani card ever. Hold on a second, I actually forgot one. He also broke the longest on-base streak for any Japanese player ever at 44 games. Passing the legend Ichiro, who literally just got a statue put up for him, so I can't even imagine what's gonna happen for Ohtani, man. But the next thing you didn't know was that even though he barely knows English, there's one bad word he loves to say. See, he might usually have an interpreter by his side translating everything he says, but everything changed during a game when all of a sudden, fuck! Oh my god, man's really yelled fuck at the top of his lungs? He's hilarious for that. But listen, something that's not funny is one of the absolute craziest things about Ohtani. I bet you didn't know that he almost died from a nuclear explosion while he was growing up in Japan and pursuing baseball to hopefully accomplish his dreams. Out of nowhere, his country was hit with a deadly catastrophe.
A violent magnitude 9.0 earthquake on March 11, 2011.
At the time, Ohtani was just a kid, dealing with the largest earthquake in Japan's history, which even caused a tsunami that sent 100-foot waves 6 miles into his city. As the water came crashing in, it caused boats full of people to drown, citizens were running to dodge buildings that were collapsing, and hundreds of people were losing their lives every minute. But things got way worse when the tsunami hit a nuclear power plant. One of their nuclear reactors exploded and sent radioactive chemicals into the city's air and water, so with radiation spreading fast. The terror instantly killed over 20,000 people and forced over 500,000 people, including Ohtani's family, to evacuate the area. Pretty much anybody who didn't evacuate died, and the destruction caused what eventually became the most expensive natural disaster ever, with damages of over $235 billion. Damn. But let's lighten the mood back up a bit to another thing you didn't know about him. Had fans claiming what he did was illegal. Because after Ohtani signed a 10-year, $700 million contract, aka the biggest in sports history, fans instantly couldn't stop talking about how Ohtani's deal had one aspect that made it suspicious. The best player in the world only getting paid $2 million per year during all 10 years he's actually playing? Yeah, the other $680 million, 97% of his entire contract is being deferred, meaning the Dodgers don't pay him that money until after the contract ends. Now, nobody including me even knew how that was legal because it meant the Dodgers could use all the money that they should have been giving Ohtani just to sign more good players, which they did. But even the MLB allowed it, even though there was fans and financial experts calling it illegal. Which actually brings me to another thing you didn't know about Ohtani that could have him scam the United States. Because with Ohtani's record deal being with a team in California, they currently have the highest state income tax in the country at around 14%, which isn't even the craziest part. There's a federal law that says states can't tax retirement income or deferred payments once you move away. So that means if Ohtani concludes his 10-year deal with the team, then decides to hop on a plane back to Japan before those $68 million a year payments start coming in, California itself can't touch him, and he would legally dodge an estimated $98 million in state taxes. I mean, that's why California's own state controller came out publicly and said this loophole needs to be shut down immediately. But that also means Ohtani really structured the biggest contract in sports history while not even having to pay taxes on most of it. I mean, this man's a damn genius. But there's definitely no way you knew that Ohtani might make history. That's never been done before. To start the 2026 season, Ohtani started going off so much that he had not 1, not 2, not 3, not even 4, but 5 home runs, 10 RBIs, and nearly a 300 batting average. If that wasn't crazy enough, Mance also gave up no runs in 12 innings with 8 strikeouts, so within the first month of the season, he already had a 65% chance to win MVP, which, if he kept playing like this, would more than likely win him his 3rd unanimous MVP of his career, the most by any player ever. But listen, if you didn't know any of these things so far, you definitely don't know about the powerful thing Ohtani did with his wood and balls.
What?
Listen, Ohtani was playing for his home country during a game in the legendary Tokyo Dome. And on this pitch, he didn't just hit a massive home run. The ball literally never landed because he hit it so hard that it literally went through the roof. That's gotta be one of the craziest things I've ever heard and craziest home runs I've ever seen. But another thing you didn't know about Ohtani created the most memorable moment of a young fan's life. It's all because Ohtani always takes time to get pics with fans, play with his puppy on the field, and is the most wholesome man in the entire league, which is why people bring signs to games saying they love him more than their husbands. I'm not kidding. But listen, none of that touched as many people's hearts as the time a young fan wanted a ball.
Oh no!
Do it again, Sean.
Okay, yes.
Man, shout out to Ohtani. That kid'll never forget that. But speaking of kids, arguably the most valuable thing that barely anyone even knows about Ohtani is what he did for the sickest little kid he ever met. See, Ohtani got word about a 1-year-old baby in Japan whose first name was, ironically, Shohei. Unfortunately though, as a baby, he was already sick and got diagnosed with a condition where the heart can't pump blood properly. And since the only cure was a heart transplant, his parents were desperately trying to raise money for the surgery. So once Ohtani heard, he knew he had to help and flew to a Japanese hospital, then held the baby in his arms and told him, "I always hope that you'll keep fighting." He gave the family gifts, including an autographed ball that said "To Shohei," and when reporters eventually asked him about the visit, Ohtani said, "It's my honor that his name was taken from me. I want to offer help by all means." From cleats that were literally on fire and cleats with cat's fur on them,
He's a cat man.
to crazy cleats worth almost $100,000, in and out cleats, expensive cleats covered in diamonds, and so much more. These are all the craziest cleats in MLB history. And first, some of the biggest MLB stars got cleats to prove they're the biggest hype beasts in the entire league. Fernando Tatis took Dior Jordan 1s, a shoe that sells for over $10,000, then not only got those turned into cleats, he also got these crazy-looking off-white Jordans. The same deconstructed shoe Virgil Abloh designed that literally changed shoe culture. But I'm not just talking about him, because Bryce Harper got Louis Vuitton X Supreme cleats and played in them during an actual game. At this point, the MLB dugout is starting to look like a StockX warehouse. But this next pair of cleats is not only covered in gold, they glow in the dark. A Brewers coach was spotted in a game wearing gold cleats that literally lit up like a kid's shoe from Skechers. His cleats were way more dope though, which is why the broadcast cared more about them than the game itself.
Yeah, a little shiny, aren't they? I'm telling you, he wins the shoe game tonight.
As crazy as those were, one player's cleats were inspired by his obsession with a furry animal. Tony Gonsolin is so obsessed with cats that he literally invented his own day of the week called Catterday. Every single Saturday, this man wears a cat shirt. He went to a cat convention where he got to pet and play with a bunch of strays.
Hi. Wow, so soft.
And one day he decided his love for cats needed to be on his feet too. So he got custom cleats made with cat fur on them to honor his two cats, Tigger and Blue. These weren't just for fun though. My boy actually pitched in the playoffs with these furry cleats on. I swear this man loves his cats more than most people love their kids. And speaking of kids, another player's cleats turned him into a toy. Gunnar Henderson really got custom Lego cleats with him painted as a character on the side. They even came with a tiny Lego figure of himself hanging off as a charm. Now, as crazy as a grown man playing professional baseball with a Lego dangling off his foot is, another player's cleats made him look like an unk. For Father's Day, Nationals pitchers showed up to the field in custom Air Monarch cleats. You know, the cinder block ass shoes that are constantly turned into memes.
I can't help it that I'm custom made, that I look good, smell good.
That's why one of them actually posted saying he wanted to win the game in these, then go cut the grass after. But looking like a dad brings me to these next cleats that had their own facial hair. See, Yankees pitcher Nestor Cortez is known for his crazy mustache. So, of course, someone made him custom cleats with a mustache stitched right onto the front. The cleats literally have more hair than some guys in the league, but multiple other players own cleats they could literally eat. Well, kinda. Jazz Chisholm showed up in custom Oreo cleats that looked like they were dipped in cookies and cream, then not only also flexed some ice cream cone Jordans, this man also has Kool-Aid cleats that look just like the iconic Kool-Aid Jammers.
Oh yeah.
Then another player showed up in In-N-Out cleats, which is already the most Cali thing I've ever heard. Aaron Judge rocked bubblegum pink cleats that even I thought were pretty dope. Mark Vientos got gummy bear cleats. And finally, Byron Buxton played in Skittles cleats. But, alright. Another player's craziest cleats are actually something he gifted to a YouTuber.
Hey, happy birthday, these are for you.
Sadly, it wasn't me, but if you subscribe, maybe one day I'll get big enough for Daddy Ohtani to give me his cleats. But anyways, Julio Rodriguez got these $400 purple crystal Adidas cleats made, and instead of keeping them in a case or a collection, Mans gifted them to a baseball YouTuber. But while those were clean, another player's cleats were literally dirty, because Marcelo Mayer got these custom cleats with actual dirt from Fenway Park sealed inside of them. Yeah, like real dirt. From one of the most legendary ballparks in the world, just sitting in his cleats. I just can't tell if that's one of the coolest things ever or the nastiest. But those weren't anything like another player's cleats that came straight out of Pokemon, because Mason Wynn showed up to the field in custom Charizard cleats. They are all orange and red with flames going up the sides, so I already know Logan Paul would love these. Yeah! But Mookie Betts' cleats are something I thought only little girls would wear, because instead Mookie Betts only showing up to a game in some dope Jordans, which we'll get to later in this video. He came out wearing Minnie Mouse cleats with pink and white polka dots and the bow on the back, so bro looked like he raided his daughter's closet. But apparently, the cleats were actually dedicated to his daughter with her birthday and full name on them, and he used them while going off in a game. Now, another player's cleats didn't just match his favorite superhero, someone traveled over 2,000 miles to deliver them. Gleyber Torres got custom Iron Man cleats designed and delivered from an artist who flew across the country just to give them to him. Red and gold with the arc reactor on the tongue. These were clean, but another pair of cleats were so rare, only one person in the entire world can own them. Derek Jeter signed a custom pair of cleats honoring his 1999 World Series run. And these weren't some mass-produced shoes you could buy at Foot Locker. There's literally only one pair on the planet, which is why at the MLB auction, they sold for $5,600. But another player's cleats involved something worth over $1 million. It's all because Matt Strom got these custom cleats with a custom paint job of himself on a baseball card just to promote his pack opening show where he rips sports cards on camera. And this isn't some casual hobby. Strom has a collection of over 1 million sports cards, making the entire collection easily worth over $1 million. But one player got his cleats customized by some of the sickest kids in his entire city. Tommy Pham visited a children's hospital where he learned about 2 of the sickest kids in there and wanted to cheer them up. So he let the kids go to work on his cleats with markers and glitter. Now, obviously they weren't perfect, but the fact that those kids got to make something a real MLB player wore on the field, that's something they'll remember forever. But that's nothing compared to one of the most expensive baseball cleats ever sold that were worn by Michael Jordan. During his time with the White Sox, MJ rocked custom Air Jordan 9 cleats on the field, and even though he wasn't great, people didn't care about the stats. They cared about the cleats, regardless. An NBA legend trying baseball was obviously legendary. That's why he signed a pair that eventually went up for auction. They sold for $93,000. But another legend's cleats are something every New Yorker would actually love. CC Sabathia had custom Timberland cleats. You know, the official boot of New York City.
New York City. 155th Polo Grounds, Rucker Park, Uptown.
The same thing you see on every single person walking through the Bronx in the winter. That has to be the most New York thing I've ever seen. But another player's cleats were so controversial, they got banned. Sean Doolittle hand-painted his Adidas cleats with a rainbow pride flag on them. He wore them during Pride Night at multiple ballparks, then even got saves in the games he rocked them in. And even though that meant a lot to him, since the cleats weren't at least 51% his team's colors, the MLB had them banned. But another player's cleats, and what he did in them was so crazy, it got his feet put in the Hall of Fame. Phillies pitcher Michael Lorenzen grew up skating in California, so instead of wearing Nike or Adidas like every other player, he got normal white Vans turned into cleats, and they all looked clean. Mookie Betts came through with brick-by-brick Jordans that were beyond rare and cost thousands of dollars. And Miguel Cabrera was gifted custom Jordan cleats that had every milestone from his entire legendary career written all over them. But Manny Machado took his Jordan 12 Asian to another level, custom area code from where he grew up on the tongue, his wife's and dog's initials, and Skittles-themed soles. Then of course Josh Naylor took things even further with $1,600 crystal Jordan cleats. But the player who really started this whole Jordan wave was Clint Frazier. This man was the king of custom cleats. He'd buy the most sneakers on the planet and get metal spikes added to the bottom. But his craziest pair were the Travis Scott Jordan ones. The reverse swoosh, the Cactus Jack branding, all turned into a baseball cleat. And the craziest part is that when Frazier posted them, Travis Scott himself reposted it. When the rapper who made the shoe is gassing your cleats, you already won. But Fernando Tatis's craziest cleats weren't just covered in crystals. They honored one of the greatest athletes to ever live. After the world tragically lost Kobe Bryant, one of the most inspirational athletes of all time, Tatis got custom cleats made to honor him that have Mamba colors, crystals everywhere, and were cleats that would forever remind Tatis of one of his favorite athletes ever. But last and definitely not least, plenty of other players got cleats inspired by their favorite things to watch on TV. Dre Jamison and Tarek Skubal had Scooby-Doo cleats. Another player rocked Simpsons cleats. There were Godfather cleats that looked like something you'd wear to a mob meeting. Derek Holland literally had The Office cleats. And that's not all of them. One player also came out with Peaky Blinders cleats, which were actually clean. There were Dragon Ball Z cleats, Star Wars cleats, and a player who put Bikini Bottom on his feet with SpongeBob cleats. And of course, Jazz Chisholm is back again with both One Piece and Demon Slayer anime cleats. This man has more custom cleats than actual hits at this point. Now, if you made it this far, subscribe because that means you actually watch the full videos. From a hurricane ripping a stadium's roof off, to a 67-year-old casino in Vegas getting blown up just to build a ballpark, in cities that don't even have a team yet throwing around billions, there's a lot of new stadiums coming to the MLB. And the first one is only gonna exist because of a catastrophe. Hurricanes came through and changed everything for the Rays. Because when one made landfall in late October, it didn't just shred Tropicana Field's fabric roof right off the building. It cost over $55 million in damage and left the team completely homeless. So the Rays were forced to play their entire home season in Tampa at Steinbrenner Field, a minor league park. And fans clearly weren't feeling it because the Rays had the second worst average home attendance in all of MLB at just under 10,000 a game. Their total home attendance for the year couldn't even break 800,000. Way down from the 1.33 million they drew at the Trop the year before. That's why St. Petersburg is now spending about $59 million to patch the place back up, with a plan for the Rays to return in 2026 and stay until the contract is done in 2028. But that's the cheapest fix in this entire video, so the other new stadiums coming to the MLB will get more expensive as we go. And what's going on in Cleveland is the most expensive thing a team's bought since LeBron James. Yeah, in Cleveland, state and county taxpayers are covering the bulk of the $202.5 million it costs to renovate Progressive Field, home of the Guardians. Instead of tearing it down, Cleveland is completely modernizing it. They're adding rooftop terraces, massive beer halls, luxury clubs, new player facilities, grab-and-go concessions, social decks, thousands of new seats, and opening up the upper deck with better skyline views, all to keep a stadium from 1994 competitive with MLB's newest parks. What do they get in exchange? The team extends their lease and chips in $10 million per year to the project. And yeah, it's the smallest ballpark deal going on right now, but it's really just an upgrade to keep an old park alive instead of replacing it. On the other hand, there's Wisconsin that took it even further, because they paid over $500 million just so the Brewers wouldn't leave the state. See, the Brewers Stadium opened in 2001, and their lease was set to expire in 2030. So the larger risk was that the Brewers, unsatisfied with the current state of their stadium, might dip out of Wisconsin entirely once that lease was up. And the politicians were pissed at the thought of that, as one sponsor of the plan flat out said it's cheaper to keep them than risk losing all the tax revenue the Brewers generate. And just think, subscribing to this channel is free, so keeping the Brewers was definitely more expensive. Listen, just be cheaper than a stadium, subscribe. Anyways, the Wisconsin Assembly passed a $545 million plan for repairs and renovations, with the Brewers saying they'll contribute $100 million and stay in the city through 2050. That lease extension keeps MLB in its smallest market for at least another 27 years. And the funny part is, the money isn't even going to anything flashy. The district completely redid all the broadcasting cabling that was original to the ballpark from its 1997 installation, then budgeted roughly $38 million more for projects like parking lot and chiller replacements. $500 million for cables and parking lots. Well, at least that's still less than what Baltimore unlocked for one of the most legendary parks ever. It's on December 18, 2023. The Board of Public Works approved a lease agreement between the Maryland Stadium Authority and the Orioles that keeps the team at Camden Yards for at least the next 30 years. And that deal unlocked up to $600 million in bond money originally authorized back in 2022, with $305 million already issued for the renovation fund. The first phase alone delivered $135 million in completed upgrades, the largest the stadium has gotten since it was first built in 1992. We're talking a new center field video board, a new sound system and control room, plus new fan spaces like the right field flag court, and open to the public hangout spot with a whole wraparound bar. And if you're wondering how a state even allows that much stadium debt, a 2022 bill increased the cap on the Camden Yards Sports Complex from $235 million all the way up to $1.2 billion. All of it closed under brand new ownership too, because a group led by David Rubenstein bought the Orioles for $1.73 billion, ending the Angelos family era. But even $600 million couldn't fix what happened in Arizona, where fans were basically cooked by the sun. Cuz Chase Field has a retractable roof that's supposed to protect everyone from that Arizona heat. At a Morgan Wallen concert in the summer of 2023, fans were miserable in the heat even with the roof completely closed. Not only did concession stands run out of water, some people just straight up left. So with the Diamondbacks lease ending after the 2027 season, time became a real factor, and Governor Katie Hobbs signed legislation funding up to $500 million in renovations. It uses sales tax revenue from the stadium and nearby buildings over the next 30 years, going towards things like air conditioning systems and that struggling roof. Then the Diamondbacks themselves have to pay $250 million of the $750 million total in upgrades and repairs. Now, not everyone was hyped about it. One Phoenix lawmaker said she's received more complaints about the stadium bill than any other piece of legislation since she took office, because people are tired of tax dollars going to private corporations. But losing the NHL's Coyotes to Utah the year before was still a bitter memory, and nobody wanted to watch another team walk. Oh, and the stadium famously has a small swimming pool in right field, which is getting none of this money. Neither are the suites, which had the Phoenix mayor annoyed. But renovations are one thing. The rest of this video is teams building whole new stadiums for billions, including a city that literally blew up a casino just to make room for a stadium. But we'll get to that in a bit. Because first, Kansas City's plan isn't just expensive. Their stadium got saved by greeting cards? Yeah, the Royals originally tried the normal route, a referendum for a sales tax to help finance a new ballpark and renovate Arrowhead Stadium. And Jackson County voters straight up said no, rejecting it with 58% of the vote in April of 2024. So on April 22nd, 2026, the Royals pulled a move that nobody saw coming. They announced a partnership with Hallmark Cards to build the new ballpark in Crown Center at the current location of Hallmark's corporate headquarters. Owner John Sherman even said,
"We're bringing baseball downtown. We're bringing a second crown downtown."
Referencing Hallmark's crown logo. Corny, but kinda smooth. The plan is for new taxes generated by the $1.9 billion ballpark to help pay off a $600 million city loan. And here's the kicker. This proposal requires no public vote, aka the exact thing that sunk the last plan, which had a nonprofit called the Missouri Workers Heated, announcing they'd look at all legal and political options to force a vote on what they called a vanity project. Regardless, the full project splits the district into 10 areas, with the stadium opening by 2031, everything complete by 2040, and Sherman claiming the $3 billion project is 2/3 paid by the Royals and private money. I mean, they even planned over 8,000 parking spaces across the 91-acre site because everyone was crying about downtown parking. But at least Kansas City has a plan, because the White Sox want to spend even more money, even though their team is ass. And they have no money. The Sox and developer Related Midwest have been discussing a 35,000 to 38,000 seat ballpark at the 78, which is a 62-acre parcel along the Chicago River. The problem? Money. The proposal needs $1 billion in tax revenue according to owner Jerry Reinsdorf, and this man said he'd be willing to contribute just $200 million.
Huh?
Bro wants a $2 billion stadium and offered a tenth of it? And while the Sox were busy not funding anything, the Chicago Fire of the MLS swooped in and announced plans to build a soccer stadium at the 78, the exact site that was rumored for the Sox. Man's got his lot stolen by a soccer team. But there is a backup plan. Minority owner Justin Ishbia is eyeing the Amtrak rail yard directly across the river, and his private equity firm is already under contract to acquire the 47-acre site. The catch is Ishbia isn't expected to take full control of the White Sox until 2029 as part of a long-term transition deal with Reinsdorf. And the drama doesn't even stop there, because the club declined to comment on a report that Reinsdorf was in active discussions with a group led by Dave Stewart, the same guy involved in Nashville's pursuit of a team. Yeah, relocation threats, a lease at guaranteed rate field expiring after 2029, and the worst record in MLB while the whole debate was raging? The only good news? Ishbia said he'd be involved in the stadium at some point after meeting the team's most famous fan, Pope Leo XIV, who has an open invitation to throw out the first pitch. So, when the Pope himself is your best stadium news, it's rough. But while Chicago argues, another team already blew up a piece of Vegas history just to make room for their new stadium. See, the A's are officially moving to Las Vegas in 2028, and their new dome stadium on the Strip is projected to cost $2 billion, including $380 million from taxpayers. And that price didn't start there. It jumped from $1.5 million to $1.75 billion to now $2 billion. Owner John Fisher even admitted the ballpark is up in the $2 billion range, which makes it more expensive than Allegiant Stadium, a $1.9 billion building that seats 60,000. A's Park seats just 33,000. Make it make sense. But before they could even break ground, they needed the land. So the Tropicana, the third oldest casino on the entire Strip, closed after 67 years. Then in the pre-dawn hours of October 9th, the historic building got imploded. Now that's a demolition. Ceremonial groundbreaking happened June 23rd. The A's have already spent $400 million on the project, which is somehow on time and on budget. And there's 4 shoring towers standing 200 feet tall each, showing just how massive this thing will be. Till it's done though, the A's are stuck playing at least 3 seasons in West Sacramento. But it'll be worth the wait, because the team got a 30-year rent-free lease with an option to buy the whole stadium. US Bank and Goldman Sachs are lending $300 million towards construction, and they're planning from earlier with the shredded roof. Their story got even crazier, because after old owner Stu Sternberg scuttled a deal to build a new dome stadium next to the damaged Trop, MLB straight up directed him to sell the team in March. So a group led by Jacksonville developer Patrick Zalupski, a guy whose company has built and sold more than 38,000 homes across 10 states, bought the Rays in a deal valuing the team around $1.7 billion. And the new squad went right to work. The Hillsborough County Commission voted 5-2 to approve a proposal for a $2.3 billion stadium on the site of Hillsborough College's Dale Mabry campus. Then the Tampa City Council approved it 4-3. The Rays would privately finance $1.27 billion plus all cost overruns, while the public contribution gets capped at $976 million, roughly $796 million from the county, and $180 million from the city. The blueprint is literally the same one the Braves used to create Truist Park and the Battery, and the goal is opening March 1st, 2029, right after the Trop lease ends in 2028. And honestly, they need it. The Rays' attendance has been in MLB's bottom 4 every single year since 2011, and hasn't been above 18,000 a game since 2013. There's already problems though, because the legislature put a constitutional amendment on the ballot that could kill a major local revenue source, and the city council chair punted a critical vote on $100 million in bonds. But regardless, even $2.3 billion isn't the craziest part of MLB's future. The cities that don't even have a team are lining up to spend way more. MLB is working toward growing from 30 to 32 teams, and Nashville and Salt Lake City are widely viewed as the leading candidates to land the 2 future franchises. But getting a team isn't just building a ballpark. The expansion fee alone could range from $2 to $2.5 billion per market. That's billions of dollars before you even build a single seat. Salt Lake City's pitch is led by the Larry H. Miller Company, centered on a proposed $3.5 billion power district development with a stadium site that's already viewed as ready to go. Portland unveiled renderings for a $2 billion stadium off the Willamette River, then asked for $800 million in public funding through a proposed jock tax, which taxes players and officials' income instead of regular residents. Now, that's actually a smart way to not rob your own citizens. Then there's Nashville, which MLB knows well after holding its winter meetings there 8 times since 1983. And the region just flexed hard when over 91,000 fans watched the Braves and Reds play at Bristol Motor Speedway, setting a major league attendance record. Over 90,000 people at a baseball game? At a racetrack? Now that is crazy. Now, there's a catch. Commissioner Rob Manfred said he wants the A's and Rays settled in new stadiums before expanding, and since he plans to retire in January of 2029, the expansion venues wouldn't open until around 2032 or 2033 under whoever replaces him. And when it finally happens, the whole league changes. Under the proposed 32-team structure, the American and National Leagues each get divided into four 4-team divisions based on geography, which would force the Rockies and the Rays to switch leagues. So between hurricanes, implosions, popes, jock taxes, whatever those are, and over $10 billion in new ballpark. This is what baseball looked like almost 200 years ago, and here's what it looks like now. So, how did we get here? Well, it all started when a dude named Alexander Cartwright wanted to take a messy backyard game that kids have been playing forever and actually give it some rules. And together with his boy Daniel Doc Adams, they basically gave us baseball. But at first, the game was complete trash. I mean, they were throwing the ball underhand like they were tossing a beanbag. There were no called strikes, and you got out if a fielder straight up chucked the ball and hit you with it while you were running. Yeah, it was basically dodgeball with bases. The game quickly evolved though, and the first ever recorded match went down in 1846 on a field in New Jersey called the Elysian Fields. By the 1850s, clubs were popping up all over New York, all playing Cartwright's version, and there was even a catch. Nobody had gloves yet, so players were out here catching pitches and line drives with their bare hands, breaking fingers left and right, because using a glove was actually seen as soft. Man, imagine getting clowned for not wanting your hand shattered. But the game kept blowing up, and by 1869, we got the very first fully professional team, the Cincinnati Red Stockings, who actually got paid to play. And I mean, they went on a tear and finished their entire season 57-0, didn't lose a single game. And just like that, baseball wasn't a hobby anymore. It became a business. But here's the thing, even as it turned into America's pastime, most of these early dudes were broke. I'm talking players working normal jobs in the offseason just to eat, because the leagues barely paid anything, and there were like 5 different ones all beefing over who was the best. That changed in 1903 though, when the 2 biggest leagues, the National League and the new American League, finally stopped beefing and agreed to settle it on the field with 1 championship. Just like that, we got the very first World Series. Baseball was officially the #1 sport in the entire country, but the league had absolutely no clue that it was about to get hit with a scandal so nasty, it nearly killed the whole sport. See, by 1919, the Chicago White Sox were the best team in baseball, heavy favorites to win it all, and everyone expected them to roll. But 8 of their players had a little secret. They were working with gamblers to lose on purpose. Yeah, these dudes took bribes to throw the World Series and then went out and mysteriously played like trash, losing to the Cincinnati Reds in a series they should have won easily. And the wild part is, people kinda knew something was off in real time. The betting odds flipped right before the games, star players were booting easy plays. But the league, they didn't want to look into it, because baseball was making money and digging would only embarrass everybody, so they just let it slide for almost a year, until a grand jury finally cracked the whole thing wide open. Now, here's where it gets crazy, because in court, the players actually got found not guilty, partly because their signed confessions straight up disappeared from the evidence files. But baseball's brand new commissioner, a hard-ass judge named Kennesaw Mountain Landis, did not care what the court said. The very next day, he banned all 8 of them from baseball for life, including Shoeless Joe Jackson, one of the greatest pure hitters who ever lived, who got banned even though he was cleared, and even though he hit .375 in the same World Series he supposedly threw. To this day, people are still arguing about whether Joe was actually guilty, but it didn't matter. Fans were heartbroken, trust in the game was gone, and baseball was lying flat on life support. It needed an absolute miracle, and somehow, what it got was a fat kid from Baltimore Reform School? This is Babe Ruth, and in 1920, right after getting sold from the Boston Red Sox to the New York Yankees in one of the dumbest trades ever made, Ruth started doing something nobody on earth had ever seen. See, back then, baseball was in what they called the dead ball era. Games were low scoring. Nobody hit home runs. Teams scratched out 1 or 2 runs by bunting and stealing, and that's just basically how it was. Then Babe Ruth showed up and said, nah, I'm just gonna hit the ball over the wall every time. And yeah, he did over and over and over and over again. This man was hitting more home runs by himself than entire other teams were hitting combined. Let that sink in. One fat dude out-homering 9-man rosters. And fans went absolutely insane for it, because after the Black Sox left everybody depressed, here comes this larger-than-life character mashing dingers, eating hot dogs, and partying like a maniac. He became the first true superstar in American sports. Bigger than the president, bigger than movie stars. Babe Ruth single-handedly dragged baseball out the gutter, packed every stadium back up, and the Yankees got so rich off him, they built a brand new stadium that people literally called the house that Ruth built. The era even got nicknamed the start of baseball's golden age, and it was all because of one guy. But behind every glow-up, there's a teammate who was about to break the entire country's heart. This is Lou Gehrig, Babe Ruth's teammate, the Yankees' first baseman, and basically the most reliable human being who ever picked up a bat. They called him the Iron Horse, cause man's never missed a game, ever. Sick? He played. Broken hand? He played. Got beamed in the head? He played the next day. He literally played in 2,130 games in a row for almost 14 straight years, a streak everybody thought would never be broken. And he was crushing it too. 7-time All-Star, 6 World Series rings, 2 MVPs, career .340 average, just a monster. Then in 1939, out of nowhere, something started going wrong. Man started stumbling running to first base, dropping easy throws, and one of the greatest hitters alive suddenly couldn't even buy a hit. He hit 143 the first month of the season with 0 home runs, which for him was basically unheard of. So on May 2nd, 1939, Gehrig walked up to his manager before the game and told him, I'm benching myself for the good of the team. That ended the streak at 2,130, and he never played another game in his life. But that's when a few weeks later, doctors at the Mayo Clinic gave him the diagnosis of ALS, a fatal disease that slowly paralyzes your entire body, and they told him that he had just maybe 2 years to live. So on July 4th, 1939, the Yankees held a Lou Gehrig Appreciation Day at Yankee Stadium. Here's where over 61,000 fans packed the place. Babe Ruth came back to hug him even though they hadn't spoken in years, and Gehrig walked up to the microphone, head down, eyes welling up, and he said, for the past 2 weeks, you've been reading about the bad break I got, yet today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
For the past 2 weeks, you've been reading about a bad break. Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
Bro, the man's dying, and that's the speech he gives? 2 years later, on June 2nd, 1941, Gehrig was gone, age 37. To this day, ALS is literally called Lou Gehrig's disease because one player made the whole world finally pay attention to it. But while baseball was busy honoring its heroes, it was about to be exposed for treating an entire group of people like trash. See, for over 50 years, baseball had an ugly little unwritten rule. If you were black, you were not allowed to play in the major leagues, period. It didn't matter how good you were. And some of the most talented players who ever lived, dudes like Satchel Paige and Josh Gibson, were stuck playing in the completely separate Negro leagues, locked out of the big stage entirely just because of their skin. Until a Dodgers executive named Branch Rickey decided he was done with it. And on April 15th, 1947, he put one man on the field who was about to break the whole thing in half. This is Jackie Robinson. And the second he stepped onto the field for the Brooklyn Dodgers, he became the first black player in modern Major League history with over 26,000 people in the stands watching. But we're gonna be honest, it was brutal. Opposing players spit on him, threw at his head, and slid into him spikes up on purpose. Entire teams threatened to refuse to take the field with him, and he was literally getting death threats in the mail. But here's the messed up part. Ricky made him promise he would not fight back, not with his fists, not even with his words. He knew the second Jackie clapped back, they'd flip it and make him the villain. So imagine being violated like that every single day and just having to take it. That's why Jackie did the only thing he could do. He cooked every single one of them on the field instead. He hit, he ran, he stole bases like they owed him money, and he even won Rookie of the Year that very first season. Jackie didn't just change baseball. He kicked the door open for the entire civil rights movement years before it even fully got going. He was a freedom rider before freedom rides existed, and that's why today, his number 42 is the only number retired across every single team in the league. Nobody on any team will ever wear it again. And that's kind of why after Jackie, the floodgates blew open. Black and Latino stars flooded into the league. The talent level went straight up, and by the 50s and 60s, baseball was bigger and better than it had ever been. Teams started expanding all over the country, brand new stadiums went up everywhere, and legends like Willie Mays making impossible catches.
There's a long drive. Back, it is.
There was even Hank Aaron chasing down Babe Ruth's all-time home run record. And Mickey Mantle even launching balls into orbit turned the sport into straight-up theater. It really felt like nothing could go wrong. But behind the scenes, the players were getting absolutely robbed. See, for almost 100 years, baseball had this thing called the reserve clause. Basically, it meant your team owned you forever. You couldn't leave, you couldn't negotiate with any other team, you couldn't do anything. You played for whoever drafted you for as long as they wanted. For whatever scraps they felt like paying you. These billionaire owners were pocket watching grown men, and there was nothing the players could do about it. Until a dude named Curt Flood looked at the whole setup and said, nah, I'm not property. Took baseball all the way to the Supreme Court in 1969. Now, here's the crazy thing. He actually lost his case, and it kinda wrecked his career. But he lit a fire that could not be put out. And a few years later in 1975, the players finally broke the reserve clause for good. Free agency was born. And now for the first time ever, players could leave whenever their contract was up and sell their talent to the highest bidder. So salaries didn't just go up, they exploded. But while everybody was busy chasing checks, one all-time great was about to throw his entire legacy in the garbage over the dumbest thing imaginable. I introduce you to Pete Rose. Nicknamed Charlie Hustle, cause man's ran out every single play like his life depended on it, even on a routine walk to first base. And his numbers? Absolutely stupid. 17 All-Star games, 3 World Series rings, an MVP, Rookie of the Year of course, 3 batting titles, and the biggest one, 4,256 career hits, the most in the entire history of baseball, a record that to this day, nobody's even come close to touching. This man should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer with a statue outside Cooperstown. But Pete Rose had a huge problem. He was a degenerate gambler. And after he retired from playing and started managing the Cincinnati Reds, the same team he was a literal legend for, dude started betting on baseball. Not other sports, not the lottery, baseball, including his own team's games while he was the manager. Then in 1989, an MLB investigation caught him red-handed, and the commissioner gave him the same punishment as the Black Sox. Banned from baseball for life. Which means the all-time hits leader, one of the greatest pure hitters who ever picked up a bat, got completely locked out of the Hall of Fame. And the saddest part, man's died recently on September 30th, 2024, still banned, still on the outside looking in, until in 2025. MLB finally lifted the ban, but only after he was already dead. So now he can get inducted in 2027, which he'll never even get to see. But regardless, just listen. Baseball survived a fixed World Series, a steroid mess that we'll get to, and its all-time hits leader getting exposed as a gambler. But none of that hurt the sport as bad as what was about to happen next. In 1994, honestly, baseball was rolling. Dudes were having insane career years. There was Tony Gwynn hitting .394 chasing the first 400 season in over 50 years, and a Giants third baseman named Matt Williams had 43 home runs by August, on pace to break Roger Maris's all-time single-season record. Fans were locked in. The season was electric, and then the players just walked? The owners wanted to slap a cap on salaries, and the players said hell nah. So on August 12th, the entire sport shut down in the middle of the season. For the first time since 1904, there was no World Series. Think about that. They played the World Series through the Great Depression, they played it through 2 world wars, but a fight over some money is what finally canceled it? No wonder why the fans were absolutely done. Attendance fell off a cliff, People stopped showing up, TV ratings cratered, and a whole generation of fans just gave up on baseball entirely and switched over to football. A sport that survived a fixed World Series was now dying for real, so it desperately needed a hero. And before the steroid guys we'll get to in a sec showed up and saved the sport with lies, one real one stepped up first. This is Cal Ripken Jr., Baltimore Orioles shortstop, MVP, All-Star, future Hall of Famer, but none of that's what made him different. Cal hadn't missed a single baseball game since May 30th, 1982. 13 straight years through colds, flus, broken fingers, mid-game brawls, you name it. Mans was in the starting lineup every single day. And in 1995, with baseball still bleeding fans from the strike, Ripken was about to do the impossible. He was chasing Lou Gehrig's record of 2,130 straight games, the streak that everyone thought would never be broken. And on September 6, 1995, against the California Angels, Cal stepped up to the plate for his 2,131st straight game and beat Gehrig's record that stood for 56 years. Then, he homered in the same game, because of course he did.
Down, here comes. Swung out, it's gone! Gone, goal! Yes!
But after the final out of the 5th inning made it an official game, his teammates literally grabbed him, threw him onto the field, and forced him to take a victory lap around the entire stadium, which every single fan stood up for and cried. That moment is what actually pulled baseball out the gutter after the strike. One regular dude just showing up every day, doing his job. And he didn't stop at 2,131 games, man. He kept going and going and going until September 19, 1998, when he finally pulled himself out the lineup after playing in 2,632 games in a row. That's over 16 years without ever taking a day off, which is a record that, just like Gehrig's, everybody now thinks will never be broken ever again. But while Cal was quietly healing the sport with hard work and class, two other dudes were about to save baseball by being on more drugs than the entire WWE locker room. In 1998, two players started chasing one of the most untouchable records in all of sports. Roger Maris's record of 60 home runs in a single season was a number that had stood completely untouched for 37 straight years. On one side, you had Mark McGwire of the St. Louis Cardinals, a giant who looked like someone carved him out of a brick wall, and on the other, Sammy Sosa of the Chicago Cubs, matching him swing for swing, dinger for dinger, all summer long. And America was hooked. I'm talking networks cutting away from other live games just to show their at-bats. The whole country tuning in just to see if these two would do it. It was the most fun baseball had been in decades. And they both broke the record. McGwire ended up smashing it with 70 home runs, Sosa finished with 66, and when McGwire hit the record breaker, even Sosa ran in from the outfield to hug him. I mean, it was beautiful. So just like that, baseball was saved. Fans came flooding back, stadiums filled up, jersey sales went crazy, and the sport was alive again. There was just one tiny little problem. It was all completely fake. Because behind those magical record-breaking numbers was steroid. And it wasn't just those two dudes either. Pretty much the entire era was juiced out of their minds, hitting baseball into another zip code, and the wild part is, the league basically knew, but they looked the other way on purpose, because those home runs were bringing fans back and making everyone an absolute fortune. Those guys chose the bands over the truth. But the cheating honestly hit its peak in 2001 when Barry Bonds, a dude who got noticeably bigger seemingly like overnight, shattered McGwire's brand new record by hitting an absolutely ridiculous 73 home runs in a single season. But by then, the secret was out. Congress straight up got involved. The biggest names in the sport got hauled in front of the government to testify on live TV.
On March 30th, 2006, I asked Senator Mitchell to conduct a comprehensive investigation of the illegal use of performance-enhancing substances in baseball.
And one by one, the heroes of the era were getting exposed as cheaters. And the punishment is still going to this day, as Bonds, McGwire, Sosa, some of the most statistically dominant players to ever touch a bat, are still locked out the Hall of Fame. Their entire legacies are cooked and have a permanent asterisk hanging over everything they did. But before all that drama came up, the country was about to deal with something way bigger than baseball. And the sport, it's gonna be the one thing that brought everybody back together. On the morning of September 11, 2001.
That is the World Trade Center, and we have unconfirmed reports this morning that a plane has crashed into one of the towers of the World Trade Center.
The entire country froze. Almost 3,000 people died. New York City was in chaos, and every major league sport immediately shut down. Then 10 days later, on September 21st, baseball came back to New York for the first time. The Mets played the Atlanta Braves at Shea Stadium, the first big sporting event in the city since the towers came down. Over 41,000 fans showed up, terrified to even be in a crowd. NYPD bagpipes played, first responders walked onto the field carrying American flags, and Diana Ross sang God Bless America while the entire stadium chanted USA. It was the heaviest atmosphere baseball had ever felt. In the 8th inning, with the Mets down 2-1, Mike Piazza walked up to the plate and on a first pitch fastball.
Wants it away. And it's hit deep to left center. Andrew Jones on the run. This one has a chance. Home run!
425-foot bomb to left center, game-winning home run. Shea Stadium absolutely exploded. Grown men were sobbing, strangers were hugging. It was one of the most emotional moments in American sports history. And that homer is so legendary, the jersey he wore is now on permanent display at the Baseball Hall of Fame and the 9/11 Memorial Museum. But the biggest 9/11 baseball moment was still coming, because a month later, the Yankees made it to the World Series, and President George W. Bush wanted to throw out the first pitch at Yankee Stadium for Game 3. Now, his Secret Service team begged him to do it in Arizona where it was safer. The man said, hell nah, it's gotta be New York. He walked out onto the mound wearing an FDNY pullover, bulletproof vest underneath, with literal snipers on every rooftop. And right before he threw it, Derek Jeter pulled him aside and went, you better throw it from the mound and don't bounce it, or they'll boo you. No pressure, right? Bush walked out to a packed stadium, gave a thumbs up, had 55,000 fans chanting USA, and throws a perfect strike. To this day, people still call it the greatest first pitch in the history of American sports, and it's honestly not even close. But while the country was busy healing, one broke little team out west was about to change how baseball was played forever. See, in 2002, a broke little team called the Oakland A's couldn't even come close to competing with the money the big market teams were throwing around. So their general manager, a dude named Billy Beane, tried something that everybody thought was insane. Instead of paying huge money for big famous names, he used straight up math to find cheap, unwanted players who were secretly really valuable in ways the old scouts completely ignored. And it didn't just work, it worked stupidly well. His broke little team went on a 20-game win streak, an American League record. It made the playoffs while spending a fraction of what the rich team spent. It got so legendary, they made a whole Hollywood movie about it called Moneyball, with Brad Pitt playing the dude. And this flipped baseball completely on its head. Suddenly, every team in the league was obsessed with stats and data, firing their old school scouts and hiring math geeks, shifting their entire defense to one side of the field based on a spreadsheet. The way the game was actually played got rebuilt from the ground up. While all that was happening, the league was also going fully global. 2001, a skinny player came over from Japan named Ichiro Suzuki, and basically everyone assumed he'd get cooked by American pitching. Instead, Mans won Rookie of the Year and MVP in the same exact season, collecting base hits like he was playing a video game on easy mode. So now the floodgates opened again, and suddenly the best players in baseball were coming from Japan, the Dominican Republic, Venezuela, Puerto Rico, all over the planet. The league that used to be locked to one country was now genuinely the best of the entire world. During all this glow up, two of the saddest fan bases in sports were about to finally break free. Remember when we said that Babe Ruth trade was one of the dumbest in history? Yeah, well, after Boston sold him to the Yankees in 1920, they didn't win a World Series for 86 straight years. Listen, 86 years of L's? Ridiculous. Red Sox fans literally called it the curse of the Bambino because they thought Babe Ruth's ghost personally cursed their franchise. And it kept happening too. They'd come this close to winning, then choke at the worst possible moment. It became a whole vibe. But in 2004, the Red Sox made it to the American League Championship Series against the Yankees of all teams, who immediately went up 3-0. Game over, right? Done deal. Because nobody in the entire history of Major League Baseball had ever come back from down 3-0, ever, until the Red Sox said bet. They won Game 4, won Game 5, won Game 6, and then in Game 7, in Yankee Stadium, in front of all those Yankee fans, they straight up curb stomped them 10-3.
Won the pennant.
The first team to ever do it, and they did it against their biggest rival in their rival's house. Then, they went on to sweep the Cardinals in the World Series, and 86 years of pain was officially over.
The Boston Red Sox are world champions.
Now, you'd think 86 years would be the worst drought in baseball? Wait till you hear about the Cubs. They hadn't won a single World Series since 1908. And the reason? Apparently in 1945, this dude who owned a bar nicknamed Billy Goat, Cenas, tried to bring his pet goat into a Cubs World Series game. When security said, hell nah, the goat stinks, kicked them both out, and the bar owner was so pissed, he literally cursed the team and said, them Cubs ain't gonna win no more. And bro, they didn't for 71 more years. Total drought, 108 years, the longest championship drought in the history of any Major League sports team ever, until 2016, when the Cubs made it back to the World Series against the Cleveland Indians and immediately fell behind 3-1. Sound familiar?
You too.
Well, they won Game 5, thank God. They won Game 6. All right, now there's a chance. And then in Game 7, it went into extra innings, tied 6-6, with a rain delay in the middle that fans swear was the curse breaking on live TV. And after a 10th inning thriller, the Cubs won 8-7.
The longest drought in the history of American sports.
108 years, dead. Literally 5 million people showed up to the Chicago parade, one of the biggest gatherings in human history. All because both curses were officially broken. But just when baseball thought it could finally relax, a brand new problem came out of nowhere. And this one was straight up boring people to death. By the 2010s, all that nerd math had a nasty little side effect. Games were dragging on forever. I'm talking 3.5-hour games with barely any action, pitchers standing there taking 30 seconds before every single pitch, batters stepping out to adjust their gloves after every swing, defenses shifting so hard that crushing a perfect line drive still got you out, fans were literally falling asleep in the stands, and younger people just straight up weren't watching anymore. I mean, I wasn't. The sport that survived a fixed World Series, survived steroids, survived a canceled season, was now genuinely at risk of dying from being boring? So in 2023, the league did something drastic. They brought in the pitch clock. Yeah, an actual countdown timer on the field, forcing pitchers to throw within 15 seconds or it's an automatic ball. And the batter has to be ready or it's an automatic strike. They banned the crazy defensive shifts, they made the bases bigger to bring back stolen bases, and they limited how many times a pitcher could throw over to first. And honestly, it straight up worked. Game times dropped by almost a full half hour basically overnight. There was way more action, stolen bases came roaring back, and fans started filling the stadiums again. Baseball had finally reinvented itself, again. But while the league was busy speeding up the game, it was about to get hit with the biggest cheating scandal since the Black Sox, and history was repeating itself in real time. Take it back to 2017 for a sec. The Houston Astros were playing some of the best baseball in the entire league. I mean, they tore through the playoffs, beat the Dodgers in a 7-game World Series, and won their first championship in franchise history. Their hitters were locked in like neo-dodging bullets, always seeming to know exactly what pitch was coming. Fastball, curveball, slider, it didn't matter. They were squaring everything up, and there was a reason for that. They were straight up cheating. See, the Astros had set up a live camera in center field aimed directly at the opposing catcher. That feed went to a monitor in the hallway right outside their dugout, where a player was watching every single sign the catcher gave the pitcher. And then they would bang on a trash can in the dugout to tell the hitter what pitch was coming. 2 bangs meant off speed, no bang meant fastball, and the hitter would know exactly what was about to come at him before the pitcher even threw it. They literally turned the World Series into a video game with cheat codes turned on, and nobody knew for 2 whole years, until late 2019, when an ex-Astros pitcher named Mike Fears blew the whistle to The Athletic, and the league launched a full investigation. What they found cooked the entire franchise. MLB hit the Astros with the maximum fine allowed, $5 million, stripped them of their first and second round draft picks for 2 straight years, and suspended both the manager and the general manager for a full year, who then got fired by the team the very same day anyways. But here's where it gets crazy. The actual players, the ones banging the trash cans, got immunity and 0 punishment. The league made a deal with them to talk in exchange for not being suspended. So Jose Altuve, Alex Bregman, Carlos Correa, all of them got to keep their World Series rings, keep their stats, kept their checks, and to this day, every single ballpark they visit, they get booed into the dirt the second their name's announced. History really repeats itself. The Black Sox in 1919, Astros in 2017. Cheating is forever, but once again, baseball needed a new face to wash all that drama away. What showed up was a player so ridiculous, he made everybody question what was even physically possible. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. This is Shohei Ohtani, a dude from Japan who can hit 100-mile-an-hour home runs and throw 100-mile-an-hour pitches. And hold on real quick, I need you to understand how insane that is. The last person to be an elite hitter and an elite pitcher at the same time was, you guessed it, Babe Ruth over 100 years ago. Everyone said it was impossible in the modern game, that no human could do both anymore. So Ohtani must have just looked at that and said, bet. And on September 19, 2024, even while not even pitching, recovering from an elbow surgery, this man also did something that had never happened in over 150 years of baseball history. In one game against the Miami Marlins, he went 6 for 6 with 3 home runs, 2 stolen bases, and 10 RBIs while crossing in 50 home runs and 50 stolen bases on the exact same night.
Shohei Ohtani starts the 50-50 club.
This wasn't just the first ever member of the 50-50 club. Not only did he do crazy that game, he did it while becoming the first member ever of the 50-50 club, a milestone so insane that not even Babe Ruth, not Barry Bonds on steroids, not anybody had ever pulled off, and is basically a baseball cheat code that the sport's never seen in its entire existence. But here's where it gets crazy. So I feel like there's a problem nobody really seems to be talking about. The biggest faces of baseball right now are getting really, really old. I mean, the typical age where a player starts falling off is around their mid-30s. Meanwhile, Clayton Kershaw, one of the greatest pitchers to ever live, is already in his late 30s and basically at the finish line. Mike Trout, the dude who was supposed to be the face of the entire sport for a decade, is in his mid-30s and can barely stay healthy anymore. Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer, two of the most dominant pitchers of an entire organization, are pushing 40 or already past it. Even Ohtani himself is in his 30s now. Like, are you guys seeing what I'm seeing? These dudes are about to retire one after another, and the league is gonna look completely different really, really soon. From the $700 million mystery of Ohtani and his dog, to a player who literally pissed on his own hands before games, an MLB legend who stored his head in a steel can, and so much more. These are the weirdest stories in MLB history. And first, what Bryce Harper did to a fan turned into an $18 million scandal. It started back in 2020 when a Phillies fan downloaded gambling apps for the first time and began spending money out of control. In just a few years, he wagered over $18 million, and spending that much had a company treat him like a VIP, gave him gifts, sent him to the Super Bowl, and more. Then in 2024, they actually surprised him with a personalized cameo from his favorite athlete, Bryce Harper, where he wished Terry and his family a happy Thanksgiving, shouted out his son by name, and the video even mentioned it was from FanDuel, so now the fan was more excited to gamble than ever. But suddenly, he went on a $1.5 million losing streak in just months. It ruined his life, and things were about to turn into a massive lawsuit. He sued FanDuel, his VIP host, DraftKings, the NFL, and Genius Sports, claiming the companies fueled his gambling addiction through VIP perks, promos, personalized rewards like the Harper cameo, and argued it was used as an incentive to keep him gambling. So once that story instantly exploded online, where Harper started getting blamed for losing a fan $1.5 million, Harper was forced to respond, saying he never even knew the video would be used as a FanDuel promotion. He wasn't affiliated with FanDuel in any way, didn't consent to the company adding its branding, and said if he'd known the real purpose or anything about Terry's gambling addiction, he never would have even made the video. Now that is crazy, but at least he didn't put weird black things in his mouth. Yeah, you heard that right. Turk Wendell pitched 11 seasons in the MLB and got named the most superstitious athlete of all time. Cause on the mound, this man chewed exactly 4 pieces of black licorice while pitching, then brushed his teeth between every inning. Not only that, this dude made umpires roll new baseballs back to him, and even leapt over the baselines at the end of each inning like the chalk was lava. Oh, and Turk refused to wear socks. Ever. Bro said, socks don't serve a purpose, they're useless. And this man wouldn't even put on a pair for his own sister's wedding. But the weirdest superstition was his obsession with his jersey number 99. Cause in 1999 and 2000, he absolutely demanded his Mets contracts end in 99 cents. Then in December of 2000, man signed a deal worth exactly $9,999,999.99. And years later, when the Mets even gave his number 99 to another pitcher, Turk actually mailed him a care package with lucky black licorice, a toothbrush, and an animal tooth necklace. That dude is weird. But what if I told you another MLB star secretly suffered from a weird disorder that made him buy cars? When Zach Greinke first made the MLB and played with the Royals, he wasn't acting like most young stars. He actually eventually stepped away from baseball for some time just because he was diagnosed with severe social anxiety disorder. I'm talking even simple conversations with teammates would be overwhelming. So whenever the team went somewhere, he even hated just asking anyone for a ride, and rather than speaking up, he spent thousands of dollars buying his own cars before he even had a license, just so when he finally did get it, he wouldn't even have to ask anybody for a ride. Even after eventually becoming an MLB star, earning over $340 million, he never changed. While other superstars who make that type of money buy things like Ferraris and Lamborghinis or the craziest cars you could imagine, Greinke was known to just drive ordinary cars, not caring about expensive vehicles at all, and the craziest part was, he didn't even like cars. Not only would he clown the cars his teammates drove, he only ever owned them so he could avoid people, and eventually even donated one of them for free to charity. What the moving on, because another player's story involves chicken, a $12 million lawsuit, and the most legendary drinking story in sports history. Hall of Famer Wade Boggs ate chicken before every game of his career. I mean, they literally nicknamed him Chicken Man, but that was only the appetizer, because this man's entire day ran on a weird schedule. Batting practice every day at exactly 5:17, sprinting at exactly 7:17, 150 ground balls before every game. He even drew the Hebrew word chai in the dirt before each at bat, and Boggs wasn't even Jewish. Dude was so superstitious that he once broke out of a slump on a day the PA announcer forgot to say his uniform number, so he asked the man to never say it again. But none of that compares to the legend of one cross-country flight where Boggs supposedly drank 64 beers. Now, Boggs denied that exact number, but when actor Charlie Day asked him about it, Boggs said that counting everything after the flight, the real total for the day was 107. And Boggs eventually leaned all the way into it, because in 2015, he guest starred on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia in an episode where the whole cast tries to outdrink his record on a flight. Too bad his personal life got even messier, because in 1989, Boggs made headlines for a 4-year affair with Margot Adams, who then sued him for $12 million for emotional distress and breach of oral contract. Now, at least Boggs stayed on the field, as another MLB star almost died multiple times and kept it secret from his team. Right after the Padres spent $340 million on a contract for Fernando Tatis, he disappeared, and the team had almost no contact with him. What nobody knew was that he was in the Dominican Republic, riding motorcycles all over the place when things went horribly wrong. Speeding around had him crash one motorcycle, then he didn't learn his lesson and crashed another one. And he kept riding motorcycles until he got into yet another accident that was so bad, he eventually admitted he thought he was gonna die. But instead of telling the Padres about this, he kept everything quiet until months later. When spring training finally arrived, the team expected their superstar to show up ready for another MVP season. Instead, they suddenly learned he had a broken wrist that required surgery, and found out about all the crashes that happened months earlier. Injury forced him to miss nearly the entire season, while fans were furious that the Padres had no idea their $340 million franchise player had been risking his life in secret. But somehow, it got even worse. Just weeks before he was finally supposed to return, MLB announced Tatis had tested positive for a banned substance, which also got him sent to an 80-game suspension. So from signing one of the biggest MLB contracts ever, to multiple controversies in a row and even almost dying, all this has weirdly made Tatis never play like the star he once was. But another MLB superstar had to survive an even crazier journey just to play baseball. And it never would have happened if it weren't for a random boat. Before Yasiel Puig was hitting home runs for the Dodgers, he was trapped in Cuba, where leaving the country was illegal without government permission. So he kept trying to escape, but the first attempt failed. Then another one failed, then another. Puig later said that he tried escaping multiple times, and every failure meant he risked being arrested and never even getting another chance. Until eventually, he trusted a group of human smugglers to get him out by boat, and things got even crazier. After finally making it to Mexico, the smugglers themselves demanded a huge cut of the MLB contract they knew he was about to sign, and Puig later claimed they threatened him when he wouldn't agree. His baseball career became a legal nightmare before it even started, and eventually when the Dodgers signed Puig to a 7-year, $42 million contract, where he started launching massive homers, making ridiculous throws, and becoming one of the biggest stars in baseball, he only became that good so he could become that rich, because he didn't know how the lawsuits and court testimonies he was being faced with would turn up. Speaking of money though, an MLB legend made a dumber decision when he almost lost $2 million for no reason? See, when Rickey Henderson signed one of the biggest contracts of his career, the Athletics handed him a $1 million signing bonus. Now, most players would have rushed straight to the bank, cashed out a bit, but Rickey never did. His MLB career had days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, until one day, the Athletics finally called him up, asking why he still hadn't cashed the check. Rickey's answer shocked everybody, as he admitted he thought the check was just a copy, so he'd been keeping it at home the entire time?
Had given you a $1 million bonus check, and instead of cashing it, you framed it and hung it on the wall in your house.
That's true.
That's true.
Yeah.
His team couldn't believe this, so they just issued him a brand new check before he finally got his $1 million. And somehow, that wasn't even his weirdest money story. Cause years later, Ricky admitted he framed another one of his bonus checks and hung it on the wall cause he thought it looked cool. But apparently bro didn't get the memo or learn the first time that he's supposed to cash these checks. After realizing it actually needed to be deposited, he finally took it down before he could finally cash it. Only Ricky could accidentally become a millionaire twice and not do the one thing he was supposed to do with the money. But listen, another MLB superstar was even dumber than that, because what he did with a drone ruined a World Series. Trevor Bauer was playing out of his mind at the time and helped pitch the Guardians to the 2016 AL Championship, where he was expected to start in some of the biggest games of his life. But just days before taking the mound, he was messing around with one of his drones where everything went wrong. The spinning blades actually ruined his pitching hand, which became so bad he needed to get doctors involved. But after getting stitched up, things weren't looking good for him to be able to play in the biggest games of his career. Regardless, he still took the mound during Game 3 of the ALCS, but after throwing just 21 pitches and playing like absolute ass, the wound ripped back open and he was taken up for the entire series. Now, he did eventually return during the World Series in Game 2, but once again, played so bad for innings straight they took him out the game, and he didn't play the rest of the series again, and the Guardians ended up losing the World Series. Man, it really ruined the biggest moments of his life. Playing with a toy? That's crazy. But this next player is one you really don't want to shake hands with. As in a 2004 ESPN interview, Cubs outfielder Moises Alou revealed that during the season, he would urinate on his hands to toughen them up. Ew! But hear the man out. Alou is one of the only big leaguers who batted without gloves, so gripping the bat raw was giving him blisters, and he swore the pee hardened his skin and prevented calluses. And he wasn't even alone doing this. Yankees catcher Jorge Posada admitted he did the same thing in spring training only, and literally told teammates not to shake his hand before games. But here's the funniest part. Doctors actually said all of this does the exact opposite. What's in urine is actually a compound they put in commercial moisturizers as a skin softener. So these men were out here marinating their hands for nothing, even though Alou somehow still hit 39 homers that year. Meanwhile, during all this, they should have listened to Hall of Famer Nolan Ryan, cause I mean, he had his own recipe where he soaked his fingers in pickle juice to prevent those blisters. Baseball players are built different, man. But listen, you are not ready for what's still coming. Like the secret $700 mystery behind Ohtani. A frozen severed head of one of the greatest hitters who ever lived. One player's pitch even got him sued by PETA for what it did to a wild animal. But before we get to those and more, one man waited 42 years for a single moment. Bartolo Colon pitched parts of 21 seasons and even won a Cy Young, but this man is most famous for one swing. See, before this moment, Colon was a career .89 hitter with 119 strikeouts and 225 at-bats. His at-bats were a fan favorite, mostly not because of what he did with the ball, but because his helmet kept flying off mid-swing.
I'm sure Vegas has a line.
Then on May 7, 2016 against the Padres, Colon turned on a James Shield fastball and sent it out.
That goes Upton, back near the wall, it's out of here! Bartolo has done it!
At 42 years and 349 days old, Big Bartolo became the oldest player in MLB history to hit his first career home run. And honestly though, the trot might have been better than the homer, cause StatCast clocked Colon rounding the bases in a brisk 30.6 seconds. Shields was so hurt that when reporters asked if he was surprised Colon turned on the fastball, all he said was next question, man. Look, Bartolo waited 21 seasons for one home run, and you probably watched way more than one of our videos without subscribing. You'll be hitting .89 in life, man. It takes one click. Subscribe. Anyways, Colon wasn't done setting weird records that year, because in August, he also drew a walk after going 281 straight plate appearances without one, a new MLB record. But Bartolo's setting records isn't as weird as one player's pitch that got him sued by PETA? March 24th, 2001 was historic. Giants batter Calvin Murray was at the plate against Diamondbacks flamethrower Randy Johnson. Johnson let a fastball rip, and mid-flight, a dove flying between the guide wires behind home plate crosses the path of the pitch. The ball hit the bird dead on, killed it instantly, and turned into a straight-up explosion of feathers. Murray's first thought was that it was a prank. He figured someone slipped in an exploding baseball and the ball just blew up halfway to the plate. Nah bro, that was a whole bird. And in 2016, a group of ornithologists and a geophysicist actually calculated the odds of that happening, and they placed it somewhere between 1 in 12 million and 1 in 50 million pitches. But here's where it gets dumb. PETA filed suit against Randy Johnson for cruelty to animals, and the man had to hire a lawyer to defend himself over the unluckiest bird of all time. But Randy clearly let it go, because nowadays he's a photographer, and the logo for his photography business is a dead bird. That's cold. But speaking of cold, one of the weirdest stories in MLB history involves a frozen head? Let me explain. Ted Williams was the last man to ever hit over 400 in a season, one of the greatest hitters who ever lived. But when he died in 2002 at 83 years old, his remains were sent to a cryonics company called Alcor to be frozen in hopes that future technology could bring him back. Except they didn't keep him whole. In a procedure called neuroseparation, Williams' head was removed from his body, but the head stored separately in a steel can filled with liquid nitrogen. And it gets so much worse, because in 2009, a former Alcor executive named Larry Johnson dropped a book alleging that a tuna can had gotten stuck to Williams' frozen head, so an Alcor official swung a monkey wrench at it to knock the can loose. The first swing missed the can and accidentally struck the head. The second swing knocked it off. They really took batting practice on Ted Williams' head? The book also claimed the head had been shaven, drilled with holes, and accidentally cracked 10 whole times. Alcor denied everything and promised legal action. But this wasn't even Alcor's first scandal, because years before Williams, a former Alcor figure was tied to the 1987 beheading and freezing of his own 83-year-old mother, where investigators questioned whether she was even dead when the procedure started. No charges were ever filed. Meanwhile, the Williams family was at war the whole time. 2 of his 3 kids chose to freeze him, while the third fought to have him cremated like he originally requested. And within months, news broke that Dad had been decapitated and stored in pieces? Oh, and the freezing came with a $136,000 bill, which Alcor claimed was still $111,000 unpaid. The family beef only ended when his daughter Bobby Jo agreed to let her siblings keep him frozen, on one condition, that they never ever try to sell their father's DNA. Bro, what is even going on with this family? Regardless, last and definitely not least, what Ohtani did with his own dog and $700 million became one of the weirdest mysteries in MLB history. Ohtani was still playing for the Angels and about to become the biggest free agent in baseball history, but absolutely nobody had any clue where Ohtani was about to sign, whether it was the Giants, Blue Jays, Dodgers, or other teams being rumored. Things got so crazy that Ohtani's flights were literally being tracked to get any clues. Then out of nowhere, while Ohtani was at the live announcement where he won his 2nd straight AL MVP award, instead of everybody talking about that, they were talking about his new dog there. What made things weird though, is how Ohtani's representatives have reportedly told MLB Network to not ask what the dog's name was. So immediately, the internet absolutely lost its mind. Fans became convinced the dog's name was secretly revealing Ohtani's next team, and people guessed it was Dodger, Giant, or Blue Jay. Some even started analyzing everything they could see about the dog, from its appearance to its collar, trying to find any type of clue about where the biggest superstar in baseball was about to go. Then just a few days later, Ohtani officially shocked the sports world by signing the biggest contract in sports at the time. 10 years, $700 million with the Dodgers. Then, at his introductory Dodgers press conference, Ohtani finally revealed that his dog was named Decoy, all because he was a decoy to distract the whole world during his time to make a decision on who he'd play for next. Man, baseball players really are the weirdest athletes on earth, man. From moments like a fan who caught a foul ball and had an entire city trying to kill him, to a pitcher literally throwing a no-hitter on acid. And there's even the time 8 players got banned for life after throwing the World Series. But those are only some of the crazy moments from the MLB of each decade. And going all the way back to the early 1900s, it starts with a player beating up a handicapped fan? See, baseball back then was grainy black and white with half the footage missing. But in 1912, a Detroit Tigers player named Ty Cobb got heckled by a fan for 2 days straight. So he hopped the fence, ran into the stands, and beat the living hell out of the dude. Only problem was, the fan he pummeled only had 1 hand with 2 fingers left. So, dude really beat up a handicapped man in front of an entire crowd? Well, that wasn't even the craziest part. Because once Cobb walked back across the field to the clubhouse, literally 80% of the fans actually stood up and cheered him on like he just hit a walk-off. These were different times, man. But it gets worse. The league suspended Cobb, so his entire team went on strike, which was actually the first strike in baseball history. And that basically forced the Tigers to grab random dudes off the streets of Philly to play in an actual MLB game. where, of course, they lost 24-2, and the guy they stuck on the mound gave up all 24 runs, then quit baseball for life to become a priest. But even all of that wasn't as crazy as what happened a few years later in 1919. All cause 8 Chicago White Sox players took a bag from gamblers to throw the entire World Series on purpose. They straight up threw games on command across an 8-game World Series, got caught a year later, and every single one of them got banned from baseball for life. And get this, the league only took them off the ban list in May of 2025, over 100 years later, when every single one of them was already dead. Oh my, going outside of the Cincinnati Reds for a bag is crazy. But moments in every other decade only get crazier from here. Like a pitcher blowing up a bird mid-pitch, a fan who became public enemy #1 of his entire city, and so much more. But before we get to those, the 1920s had the single most tragic moment in baseball history, which was a moment so loud, you could hear it across the entire stadium. It was August 16th, 1920. Cleveland Indians shortstop Ray Chapman stepped up to the plate against Yankees pitcher Carl Mays, a dude known for throwing at people's heads. And when the first pitch came in, yeah, a fastball hit Chapman directly in the skull, and the crack was so loud, Mays thought it hit the bat, so he fielded it and threw it to first, while Chapman was collapsed at the plate. Yeah, he stood back up for a second, tried to walk to first, but he collapsed again. Then over 12 hours later in the hospital, Chapman actually died. Yeah, to this day, he's the only player to ever die from an MLB game. But to make the situation even crazier, his wife died by suicide 8 years later, and their daughter passed from the measles a year after that. Man, that pitcher really cleared out a whole family with one pitch, and somehow, it still took baseball over 30 more years to make helmets a normal thing. The only silver lining to all this, Cleveland went on to win the whole World Series that season and dedicated it to Chapman, but things in baseball lightened way up in the 1930s, where the GOAT pulled off arguably the most legendary moment in sports history. 1932 World Series, Game 3, Yankees vs. Cubs, tied 4-4 in the 5th. Cubs fans were absolutely roasting Babe Ruth from the stands, and their bench was clowning him too. So dude just steps up to the plate, raises his arm, points to center field, and on the next pitch, he smokes it 490 feet right where he pointed. This hit became forever known as the called shot, the most legendary thing a batter has ever done. But ironically, in that same stadium that gave us the craziest flex in baseball history, also gave us its most heartbreaking goodbye. Babe Ruth's own teammate, legendary Lou Gehrig, was the most indestructible player alive. They called him the Iron Horse for a reason, cause man's played 2,130 games straight without missing a single one. But then in 1939, his body just, stopped working. Routine plays became impossible, so he eventually benched himself to stop hurting the team. Then shortly after, doctors actually diagnosed him with ALS on his 36th birthday. So knowing he didn't have much time left, on July 4th, 1939, in front of 61,000 fans, Gehrig gave the most famous speech in sports history.
For the past 2 weeks, you've been reading about a bad brag.
Where he said, "Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth." So, man's really just got handed a death sentence and called himself lucky? Well, Babe Ruth, who hadn't spoken to him in 5 years over some random ass beef, walked over and hugged him crying. And it's all because he knew it was going to happen next. Gehrig passed away less than 2 years later, just 37 years old. And this was such a devastating moment that the disease is literally named after him now, and his number 4 became the first jersey ever retired in sports. But moments after that only get more unhinged. Like a team owner putting a 3'7" dwarf into a real MLB game that we'll get to later. Because before that, we just have to talk about the 1940s, where it changed baseball forever with a moment that shook the entire country. In April 15th of 1947, a player literally changed the game of baseball forever. Jackie Robinson walked onto the field knowing half the fans, half his own teammates, and basically every opposing player was gonna try to break him. There was death threats flooding in, pitchers throwing at his head on purpose, and fans screamed slurs at him all season. But Jackie was built different.
Jackie Robinson stood plate, and the heavy-hitting second baseman responded by lacing a tremendous triple to right center to send Snyder home at the 4th run.
He overcame all that, won Rookie of the Year that season. By 1949, he was even an All-Star and League MVP, then eventually got into the Hall of Fame. He carried the weight of an entire race on his back and made it look easy. So not only did they eventually make a movie about his career, his number 42 is actually retired on every MLB team, regardless if he even played there, which became the only number in sports that's straight up untouchable. It's hard to top that. But the 1950s pulled up with a moment so ridiculous, it forced the league to change its rules. In August of 1951, I'm not gonna lie, the St. Louis Browns were a dumpster fire of a team who couldn't even sell tickets. So their owner at the time, Bill, had an idea. He wheeled a giant 7-foot birthday cake onto the field between games of a doubleheader. Fans thought it was just some halftime entertainment, but then the cake popped open, and out jumped a 3'7", 65-pound dude in a Browns uniform with the number 1/8 on his back. Wait, what? His name was Eddie Gato, the smallest MLB player in history, officially on the roster as a pinch hitter, and since his strike zone was basically a postage stamp, the pitcher walked him on 4 pitches. Fans tipped his cap, then the league voided his contract the very next day, so a stunt like that could never happen again, but to me, that shit was hilarious. Besides, a grown man popping out of a cake wasn't even the wildest thing in 1951, because that same year, the New York Giants were dead, 13 games behind the Dodgers in August with the season almost over. Then out of nowhere, they won 37 out of their last 44 games and forced a winner-take-all playoff for the pennant. Final game, bottom of the 9th, Giants down 4-2, and no team had ever come back from 3 down in the 9th of a playoff. Then Bobby Thompson steps in and walk-off 3-run bomb.
Backer throws. There's a long back. I believe. The Giants win the pennant. The Giants win the pennant.
The announcer screamed, "The Giants win the pennant 4 times in a row." Fans stormed the field, and to this day, it's called the shot heard around the world. For 50 years, it was the most legendary moment in baseball until 2001 when the Wall Street Journal exposed their dirty little secret. That whole comeback, they had a coach hiding behind center field with a telescope, stealing the catcher's signs and relaying them to the hitters. Sound familiar? Put a pin in that, cause 66 years later, another team ran the exact same play with an upgrade, but we'll get to that, just calm down. Cause moving on to the 1960s, they opened with the most dramatic swing in World Series history, right before the decade started crashing out with brawls and attempted murders. During the 1960 World Series, the mighty Yankees with Mantle and Maris against a Pirates team nobody believed in. And the Yankees weren't just winning, they were cooking. 16-3, 10-0, 12-0. They outscored Pittsburgh 55-27 across the series. But the Pirates somehow magically started stealing some close ones, and it ironically came down to Game 7, tied 9-9, bottom of the 9. Here's where Bill Mazeroski, the number 8 hitter, aka probably ass, steps in and
Here's a swing and a high fly ball going deep to left. That's how you do it. Back to the wall goes Berra. It is over the Pirates win.
gone. Walk-off, World Series over? 65 years later, it's still the only Game 7 walk-off homer in World Series history. But hold on a sec. Rest in peace, Maz, who just passed away in early 2026 at 89. An absolute legend. But that's where the wholesome part ends. Because the craziest moment came on August 22nd, 1965. Giants versus Dodgers. Juan Marichal had been throwing at Dodgers heads all game, so when he came up to bat, catcher John Roseboro chucked the ball back and nicked Marshall's ear on purpose. Marshall turned around, cussed him out, and then raised his bat and bashed Roseboro over the head with it multiple times. Roseboro's head split open, needed 14 stitches, in the middle of an actual game in front of 43,000 fans, and Marshall only got suspended for 8 games. Man, if that happened today, dude would be locked up for attempted murder. But here's the twist. Roseboro later forgave him, actually helped him get into the Hall of Fame, and when Roseboro died, Marshall was a pallbearer at his funeral. Dude, hold on. Bro beat him with a bat, then carried his casket? That shit only happens in baseball. But as unhinged as moments in each decade were so far, we still have to see a stadium riot over dollar beer, a pitch that made a bird explode mid-pitch. There's even a fan who got chased out of a stadium by his own team's fans, and way more. But before all of those, the 1970s were filled with absolutely insane moments. In the summer of 1970, Pirates pitcher Doc Ellis is chilling at his boy's place in LA, thinking it's an off day. So he does what zero responsible athletes would do. He drops acid at noon. One problem, at 1 p.m., his girl looks at the newspaper and goes, you're supposed to be pitching tonight in San Diego. So Mans hops on a flight, gets to the stadium, walks to the mound still tripping, and throws a no-hitter. By his own account, the ball kept changing sizes. Sometimes he couldn't even see the catcher. At one point, he dove out the way of a line drive that never came. He walked 8 dudes, hit another one, and still didn't give up a single hit. To this day, it's the only no-hitter in MLB history thrown by a man who was actively hallucinating. And the wildest part? Ellis later got sober and spent the rest of his life as a drug counselor, helping other players get clean. What? Now, a few years later, Cleveland reminded everyone that things on the field can get way worse. June 4th, 1974, the Indians' genius idea to sell tickets was 10-cent beer night, 6 beers per purchase, unlimited purchases. So I'm sure you could tell where this was going. By the second inning, a woman flashed the umpire, then a naked man slid into second base. There was a father and son who went onto the field and mooned the fans in the bleachers, and that was just the warm-up. By the 9th inning, over 200 drunk fans stormed the field, ripped the bases out of the ground, started throwing metal chairs at players. So Billy Martin led the Rangers out swinging bats to rescue their own outfielder. Then the Indians grabbed bats and jumped in to defend the other team from their own fans. The umpire had no choice but to call it a forfeit, and the funniest part? Cleveland had just fought back to tie the game right before the riot, so their own fans literally rided away a comeback all over a 10-cent beer. Easily the worst promotion idea ever. But the 1980s had their own version of drama, where a ground ball ruined a man's life. It was Game 6 of the World Series, Red Sox vs. Mets. The Red Sox hadn't won a championship since 1918, a 68-year drought, and fans blamed it on a curse for selling Babe Ruth to the Yankees. But this night, Boston was up 5-3 in the 10th, 2 outs, and they were 1 strike away from finally breaking the curse. But then, the Mets hit single after single after single, and a wild pitch tied it. Then, Mookie Wilson rolls the softest ground ball on earth toward first baseman Bill Buckner, right through his legs.
Little roller up along first, behind the bag, it gets through Buckner!
Mets win, then they eventually won Game 7, and Boston fans made Buckner's life hell. Death threats, booed everywhere he went. The Red Sox eventually released him the next summer. Mets had over 2,000 career hits, and 1 ground ball deleted all of it. It literally took 22 years before Fenway forgave him. When he threw out a first pitch in 2008, and the whole stadium stood and actually clapped for a minute. But the craziest moment of the decade came right before Game 3 of the 1989 World Series. It was Giants vs. A's. Fans were filling Candlestick Park. ABC was live to 62 million viewers. Then out of nowhere,
at second base, so the Oakland A's take.
I'll tell you what, we're having an earth.
A 6.9 magnitude earthquake hit the Bay Area right before the game. And it wasn't just a shake. The upper deck of the Bay Bridge collapsed, a freeway pancaked, and 63 people died. The World Series got postponed 10 days for structural damage. Easily the most terrifying live TV moment in sports history. But ironically, experts say the game actually saved lives, because thousands left work early to watch, so they weren't on those collapsed freeways. But now, we're moving on to decades we've all been waiting for, with moments that, honestly, I've been hyped to talk about since the beginning. The 1990s were a completely different tier of craziness, and starting with the craziest home run in MLB history. In May of 1993, Rangers outfielder Jose Canseco was running back on a fly ball to right, puts his glove up, and
It is off his head.
Bro, the ball literally bounced off his skull and cleared the wall for a home run? I mean, his own teammate in center field was bent over laughing. This was the only time in MLB history so far that someone got the ball over the fence for the other team's homer using their own head. So no wonder why Canseco said afterwards, "I'll be on ESPN for a month. I'm entertaining." But getting bonked is way less embarrassing than what happened to Robin Ventura 3 months later. It's when Nolan Ryan was a 46-year-old grandpa-aged legend, and pitching, he plunks White Sox star Robin Ventura, 26 in his prime, so Ventura charges the mound. Bro, you're charging Nolan Ryan?
Look at this.
Well, Ryan instantly snatches him into a headlock and starts raining punches on the top of his head. 6 of them. Ventura got ejected and suspended, and Ryan didn't even get tossed. He stayed in, pitched 7 innings, got his team the win, and had the whole stadium chanting his name. So think about that for a second. Imagine charging a grandpa and catching an L in front of 40,000 people. But the decade closed out with the luckiest 12-year-old in sports history. In October of 1996, Game 1 of the playoffs, rookie Derek Jeter lifts a fly ball to deep right. The Orioles outfielder is camped under it at the wall. Then a 12-year-old kid named Jeffrey Meyer reaches his glove over the fence and snatches it out of the air.
In right field, Tarasco Going back to the track, to the wall. And what happens here?
This was clear fan interference and should have been an out, but there was no replay back then, so the ump just signaled home run. This led to them not only winning the game, but the entire World Series after that. And instead of getting destroyed, this kid became the most famous person in New York. Good Morning America flew him in, and literally became a celebrity in middle school. But if you thought the 90s were chaotic, the 2000s changed the game with cheating scandals, exploding wildlife, and a fan who got his life ruined over one fly ball. March 24th, 2001, Randy Johnson, the 6'10 Hall of Famer known as the Big Unit, winds up and throws a 95-mile-per-hour fastball, but before the ball even reached the plate, bro literally blew up a bird mid-pitch because a mourning dove flew directly into the path of his fastball and got obliterated. The batter thought the ball itself exploded. Then Jeff Kemp walked over, picked the dead bird up barehanded, and acted like he was going to take a bite out of it. The ump's official ruling? No pitch. The most famous no pitch ever called, and 25 years later, Randy Johnson made the dead bird the official logo of his photography company. But at least the bird died doing what it loved. This next victim was just doing his job. September 19, 2002, Royals first base coach Tom Gamboa is minding his business in the ninth. Then out of nowhere, a shirtless dad and his 15-year-old son sprint out the stands and blindside him from behind. Both teams swarmed in, and when they peeled the maniacs off, a pocket knife fell out of one of their pockets. They came armed. Gamboa got permanent hearing loss in that ear, and the dad had called his sister before the game telling her to watch because he'd be on TV. So man's really planned a felony for clout before clout existed. So 90 years after Ty Cobb jumped into the stands to fight a fan, fans started jumping out of the stands to fight the staff. Full circle. But even that wasn't as heartbreaking as what happened 1 year later. October 14th, 2003, Cubs vs. Marlins. Game 6 of the NLCS, where the Cubs hadn't won a World Series in 95 years, and they were 5 outs away from getting back to one. With the Cubs up 3-0 in the 8th, a foul ball drifted towards the left field stands. A random Cubs fan named Steve Bartman reached up to catch it, deflected it away from the outfielder's glove by inches, and that one moment shifted the entire game. The Cubs gave up 8 runs later that inning, lost the game, lost Game 7, and got eliminated. Then Cubs fans immediately blamed Bartman, started throwing beer at him. Security had to rush him out for his own safety. His name got leaked online. Cops had to guard his house. The governor of Illinois literally offered him witness protection. Fans couldn't even leave his house over one reach for a foul ball, but put a pin in his story, because it gets the most insane ending possible later on. While Cubs fans were ruining a man's life over a curse, Red Sox fans were about to watch theirs die. Remember the curse of the Bambino from the Buckner game? By 2004, it was 86 years old, and the Red Sox were down 0-3 to the Yankees in the playoffs. And in 100 plus years of MLB history, no team had ever come back from 0-3, not once. Then, Boston started ripping off the impossible. David Ortiz walked off games 4 and 5, back-to-back, the second one in the 14th inning. Game 6 is where it gets disgusting though. Kurt Schilling had a torn up ankle, so doctors literally stitched the tendon in place just so he could pitch. But obviously not good enough, because the stitches leaked mid-game and blood soaked through his stock on live TV. But man still dominated. Game 7 though, blowout in Yankee Stadium. The first and only 0-3 comeback in MLB history. Then, the Red Sox swept the World Series and an 86-year-old curse died on the spot. Buckner was finally free. But the biggest scandal of this decade involved steroids and the most hated home run ever hit. Barry Bonds was already a Hall of Famer, but his body transformed mid-career like he joined a CyEngine. Shoe size grew, head size grew, muscle mass grew, and by 2007, he was about to break Hank Aaron's all-time record of 755 home runs, while literally on trial for lying to feds about steroid use. So when he eventually hit number 756 to pass Aaron, the commissioner didn't even show up, and half the crowd was booing, cause dude broke the most sacred record in sports, and nobody cared, cause everybody knew he juiced, same as A-Rod, Clemens, Sosa, and the whole era. But the man who translated everything Ohtani said for 6 years let his gambling problem spiral out of control, and he lost $40 million on sports bets. Then to pay off his debt, he stole $17 million out of Ohtani's bank account, impersonated him on phone calls, and made 19,000 bets in 2 years. Just add that up for a second. Bro was making 25 bets a day with his own boss's money, and that's why when the story broke the news and he started getting investigated, he got sent to 57 months in federal prison. And What's crazy is, that wasn't even the craziest moment of Ohtani's career, because later that same year, he did something that nobody thought was humanly possible. 50 home runs and 50 stolen bases in the same season. Never been done before in MLB history. But while Ohtani was speedrunning history in a good way, the Chicago White Sox were speedrunning in the opposite direction. I mean, the 2024 White Sox had the worst season in modern baseball history. 121 losses, breaking a record that stood 62 years. They literally went 41 and 121, and at one point, lost 21 games in a row. They got cooked so consistently that their own social media team gave up. After one loss, final. The number of runs we scored was not greater than the number of runs they scored. The admin was literally posting through the pain. But the decade ended with maybe the greatest World Series ever played. Dodgers versus Blue Jays. And honestly, I remember watching Game 7, this shit was crazy. But in Toronto, here's where Bo Bichette ripped a 3-run bomb off Ohtani early, and the Jazz were up 4-3 leading into the 9th. The Dodgers were literally 2 outs away from losing. Then the most unexpected player to save the day, Miguel Rojas, one of the worst hitters on the team. I mean, he was literally the number 9 hitter for a reason, and hadn't gotten a single hit all World Series long. He just somehow ties the game with a home run. He was only the second player in history with a tying or winning homer that late in a Game 7. And the other one was obviously who we mentioned before, Bill, 65 years earlier, full circle. But then in the 11th inning, Will Smith, no, not that one. This Will Smith hits a go-ahead bomb, the first ever extra innings go-ahead homer in a World Series Game 7. But things weren't over yet. That's when Yamamoto, the Dodgers pitcher who threw 96 pitches the night before, came out and closed it on 0 days rest. The Dodgers won 5-4, back-to-back titles for the first time in 25 years. This was easily one of the greatest baseball games ever played, so if you didn't watch that shit, I feel bad for you. But with all of the moments that we talked about in this video, I'm just excited as hell to see what the next crazy moment in MLB is gonna be. From baseball legends stuffing cases full of cash to hide it from the government, to a World Series champion attacking 5 people with a machete. One MLB star even became an actual murderer. These are MLB stars who turned into criminals. But starting with the team that had 4 players locked up at the same time. Late in the 1983 season, several Royals players were being questioned by a US attorney named Jim Marquez, all because of a federal cocaine probe. And once the season ended, everything came out. Willie Aikens, Jerry Martin, and Willie Wilson all pled guilty to attempting to purchase cocaine, while their former teammate Vito Blue pleaded guilty to possessing 3 grams of it. Now, doing coke as a squad is already crazy, but these 4 became some of the first active major leaguers ever thrown in prison on drug charges when they each got sentenced to 3 months. The commissioner even suspended Aikens for a whole year before letting him back in May of 1984, and the Royals shipped him off to the Blue Jays right after his sentencing. Then just 2 seasons after their players went through the entire drug case, the Royals ended up winning the 1985 World Series while Aikens sat behind bars watching his old team celebrate. But a 3-month punishment is honestly nothing, because baseball's all-time hits leader committed a crime so bad that had him stuffing suitcases with cash. Yeah, Pete Rose, the man with more hits than anyone in baseball history, pled guilty in 1990 to 2 counts of filing false federal income tax returns. Because from 1984 to 1987, this man failed to report over $354,000 in income, and most of that money actually came from gambling and baseball card shows, where Pete would sign hundreds and hundreds of autographs at $8 a piece. Then witnesses said they watched him take all that cash and stuff it into suitcases and sacks. Now, this all went down just a year after Pete's career came crashing down already, when he got banished from baseball for gambling by the commissioner, who then died of a heart attack soon after. So when Pete finally faced the judge, he could have gotten up to 6 years in prison and a $500,000 fine, but the judge separated the living legend from the man who cheated on his taxes, which meant Pete got 5 months in prison, 3 months in a halfway house, 1,000 hours of community service, and a $50,000 fine. He served it all at a minimum security work camp about 10 miles south of Marion on 100 acres housing around 250 white-collar inmates. But at least Rose's crimes were never violent, because Jose Canseco spent almost 20 straight years getting arrested. The 1988 MVP's rap sheet started in April of 1989, when police found a loaded handgun in his car, and he pled no contest to a misdemeanor. Then in February of 1992, Jose got arrested for aggravated battery because he slammed his own car into his wife's BMW twice, causing $10,000 worth of damage. And in November of 1997, he was arrested again, this time for beating his then wife Jessica, where he pled no contest and got a year of probation plus counseling. But what's crazy is, man still wasn't done. Because in October of 2001, Jose and his brother Ozzy got into a fight with 2 men at a Miami Beach nightclub, then left one dude with a broken nose and the other needing 20 stitches in his lip. Both brothers got charged with 2 counts of aggravated battery, pled guilty, and got probation and community service. But Jose couldn't even do that right. He never took his anger management classes or started his community service. So in 2003, he got thrown in jail for a month, then hit with 2 years of house arrest and 3 more years of probation. Then in 2008, this man got detained at the San Diego border trying to sneak a fertility drug in from Mexico. He claimed he needed it for hormone replacement therapy because of all of his steroid use. And well, he wasn't done, because in 2014, Jose accidentally shot himself in the hand while cleaning his own gun. This man is a walking crime spree, but at least he never sent a fan to the hospital, as Frank Francisco did that with a chair. During a September of 2004 game in Oakland, the Rangers reliever was chilling in the dugout while things got heated between his bullpen and the fans. But instead of staying out of it, Frank ran all the way from the dugout to the bullpen, grabbed a folding chair, and launched into the right field box seats. The chair hit one man in the head, then bounced and struck a woman on her left temple, breaking her nose and cutting her bad enough to need stitches. But the wildest detail? The woman was married to the guy who'd been heckling the Rangers all game. His wife caught the chair meant for him. Frank was taken straight from the stadium to jail where he got booked, fingerprinted, took his mugshot, and got released about 2 hours later on $15,000 bail. But then the punishment started flying. Frank was suspended for the rest of the season, his teammate Doug got 7 games, and reliever Carlos and hitting coach Rudy each got 5. Then in 2005, Frank pled no contest and only got anger management classes in a work program. Then the woman Jennifer Bueno settled a civil suit in 2007 for an undisclosed payment and a public apology. Man, but throwing chairs got Frank 0 prison time. Meanwhile, a Cy Young winner kept getting caught at the border with something stuffed in his pants. Lamar Hoyt won the 1983 Cy Young Award, then threw his whole career away at one single border crossing. Because in October of 1986, he tried to cross at San Isidro with 500 pills stuffed in his pants and socks, a whole cache of painkillers, and Valium in the crotch of his trousers. And what's crazy is that was already his 2nd arrest at that exact same crossing in 9 months. Now, through a plea bargain, the charges got reduced to misdemeanors, so he was sentenced to 45 days at a federal prison camp, 5 years of probation, and he even had to forfeit the Porsche he was driving during the arrest. Then the commissioner suspended him for the entire 1987 season, and even though an arbitrator cut it down to 60 days and ordered the Padres to reinstate him, the team still owed Lamar $3 million on his contract and released him the very next day anyway. Now, you'd think losing millions would be the wake-up call, until a 4th drug arrest in December of 1987 ended his career for good and got him sentenced to a year in federal prison. What's crazy is this man's even requested to serve it at a prison camp in Florida just because it was near several team spring training sites, even though he wasn't even going to be able to watch the games. But that's still nothing compared to Lenny Dykstra, who committed damn near every single crime you can think of. The 3-time All-Star was living large after baseball, even buying a mansion once owned by hockey star Wayne Gretzky, until he filed for bankruptcy claiming he owed more than $31 million and only had $50,000 in assets. But instead of taking his L, Lenny got sneaky. He claimed he put an oven, sconces, and chandeliers into a storage unit, when prosecutors said he actually sold it all for $8,500. Then he went to another house where his ex-wife lived, sold a stash of baseball memorabilia to a Vegas dealer for $15,000, and pocketed everything. Hold on, subscribing to us is free, by the way, so everything Lenny stole was worth way more than that. Subscribe. But he wasn't done. Lenny ran a whole scheme leasing high-end cars from dealerships using fraudulent information and a phony business, which prosecutors said showed sophistication and extensive planning. So in 2012, he was sentenced to 3 years in a California state prison after pleading no contest to grand theft auto and providing a false financial statement. Then got another 6.5 months plus $200,000 in restitution for the bankruptcy fraud. Oh, and when police arrested him in 2011, they said they found cocaine, ecstasy, and synthetic human growth hormone at his home. But the most disturbing part? Lenny posted on Craigslist asking for someone to help clean his house. And when the person showed up, he answered wearing a robe, said massaging was also included in the deal, and dropped the robe completely nude. That alone got him 9 months in jail. Rob collected charges like baseball cards, bankruptcy, fraud, money laundering, grand theft auto, terroristic threats, drug possession, and indecent exposure. But listen, you are not ready for the World Series champion who attacked 5 people with a machete, or the all-star who ended a man's career with a baseball bat, because all these stories are about to get way darker from here. But before we get to those, I gotta tell you about the player who turned into a whole crime boss. Denny was the last pitcher in baseball history to win 30 games in a season. So, of course, he followed that up by getting indicted by the US Justice Department in 1984 under the Federal RICO Act, the same law they use on mobsters. The charges? Racketeering, extortion, and trafficking coke. In 1985, he was convicted and sentenced to 25 years in prison. But Denny only served 2 years before getting released because his conviction got reversed for prosecutorial misconduct. And in between his prison stunts, this man was out here modeling Hanes underwear and signing autographs on work release at a 7-Eleven. From 30-game winner to the 7-Eleven meet and greet. Now, here's where a normal person stays out of trouble forever, but Denny is not a normal person. In 1993, he and a partner bought a struggling meatpacking company called Pete Packing, and soon after, $2.5 million went missing from the employee's pension fund, and the whole company went bankrupt by 1995. So in 1996, Denny was convicted of embezzlement, mail fraud, and conspiracy for stealing from his own workers' retirement money and spent 6 more years in prison. His weight eventually ballooned to 330 pounds during his post-baseball downfall. And even in 2008, he was getting arrested again for failing to appear in court while owing creditors over $60,000. But honestly, his crimes were small time compared to the all-star who ran his own stash house. Esteban was a 2-time All-Star who went 21-9 for the White Sox in 2003 and even finished second in Cy Young voting. Prosecutors even said he earned tens of millions of dollars and the admiration of fans across the US and Mexico, until he threw it all away. In February of 2018, the San Diego County Sheriff's Department pulled him over in a routine traffic stop and found a sophisticated aftermarket compartment used to conceal contraband built into his car. So cops got a warrant for a home he'd been renting, located steps away from a preschool, and found roughly 20 kilograms of suspected cocaine. Esteban admitted everything. He took possession of a silver Mercedes SUV that he knew had cocaine inside, drove it to a townhouse he rented in Imperial Beach, then transferred all 20 kilos, about 44 pounds, into another vehicle in the garage to distribute it. And prosecutors made it clear he wasn't just some courier. He had full knowledge of what he was moving, he rented and maintained the stash house, and he transferred all 20 packaged bricks himself. So in 2019, Esteban was sentenced to 36 months in federal prison, and his own lawyer said he'd be deported right after serving it. But 3 years for 44 pounds of coke is crazy, when another player got 20 years for way less. Yeah, Willie Aikens is back, because a decade after his little 3-month Royals drug case, things got so much worse. In March of 1994, Willie was arrested in Kansas City for selling crack to an undercover police officer, and he got hit with 4 counts of crack distribution, plus 1 count of using a firearm during drug trafficking. Now, here's where it gets insane. Because of the tougher federal guidelines for crack, Willie was sentenced as if he had 15 pounds of powder coke. He got the maximum of 15 years and 8 months, plus 5 more years because there was allegedly a loaded gun in the room where the drugs were sold. A 20-year sentence when a similar amount of powder coke would have gotten him 27 months at most. His case became a national example of the sentencing disparities that largely hit Black and Hispanic people. And Willie ended up serving nearly 14 years before being released when the law changed. But the drugs weren't the problem for Jose Offerman, because he ended a man's career with a baseball bat. In 2007, the 2-time All-Star was playing for the Long Island Ducks, looking for one last chance at the majors. Then during a game, Jose got hit by a fastball, and instead of just charging the mound like players usually do, he charged it holding his bat. He swung at least twice, striking both the pitcher and the catcher. The pitcher, Matt Beach, broke the middle finger on his non-throwing hand, but the catcher, Jonathan, suffered a head injury that ended his entire career. The police working security arrested Jose on the spot, charged him with 2 counts of second-degree assault, and he posted $10,000 bond. His own teammates could not believe it. I mean, one of them even said, "He's about as quiet as a teammate I ever played with. The fact that happened is, to say surprising, is probably an understatement." Now, his defense disputed that he actually struck the players with the bat, so Jose got a probation program that dismissed the charges and was just ordered into anger management. But a civil jury still made him pay, awarding Nathans $940,000. The catcher still deals with inner ear problems from that bat to the head, including nausea and dizziness, though he pushed through it all, graduated law school, and became an attorney in Maine. Did Jose learn anything? Nope. 3 years later, he was banned for life by the Dominican Winter League for punching an umpire during an argument while managing the Tigers. But when it comes to pure violence, nobody tops this next player. Ugueth Urbina was a World Series champion closer who helped the Marlins beat the Yankees for the 2003 title. But his life turned dark fast. In September of 2004, his 54-year-old mother was kidnapped in Venezuela and held for a $6 million ransom. His family refused to pay, okay? So an anti-kidnapping unit rescued her in a military-style operation months later. But just months after that, Uguth became the criminal? On October 16th of 2005, he assaulted 5 farm workers on his family's ranch, accusing them of stealing a gun. And he didn't just fight them. He attacked them with a machete and tried to douse them with gasoline. Uguth was arrested that November, and even though he repeatedly denied everything, claiming he was sleeping during the attack, in 2007 he was convicted of attempted murder and sentenced to 14 years and 7 months in prison. The victim said it best. It was proof that anyone with power, influence, and money is not above the law. And he ended up serving just over 7 years before his release on Christmas Eve of 2012. But attempted murder still isn't the worst crime on this list, because this next player actually killed someone. Julio Machado was a relief pitcher for the Mets and Brewers until one night destroyed everything. On December 8th of 1991, shortly after the MLB season ended, he got into a late-night traffic accident in Venezuela. Instead of exchanging insurance like a normal person, Julio pulled out a gun and fatally shot a 23-year-old, a passenger in the other car, who died from a bullet wound to the head. Now, Julio claimed it was self-defense and that he believed he was going to get robbed. The court didn't buy it though. In March of 1994, he was convicted of murder and sentenced to 12 years in prison. Then when he appealed, Venezuela's Supreme Court rejected it and upheld everything. Now, he did reach a settlement with the victim's parents, paying them about $38,000 in civil damages. But in the middle of all this, things got even crazier when thieves stole the prosecutor's car during the case and set it on fire. The wildest part? While he was restricted from leaving the country during the years-long case, Julio just kept pitching in the Venezuelan Winter League like nothing happened. Now that is crazy. But not every one of these stories stayed dark forever. Akins, Strawberry, and even Machado all found religion after prison and made their way back to jobs around baseball. Too bad you're about to commit a crime by not clicking this video. It's free. So you've got no excuse. Don't make me call a US attorney on you, man. What are you doing? Click it.